Oh, okay. Now I gotta fix the camera. Hey everybody, how's it going? Let me just fix the camera real quick. Um, there we go. That works. That's better. Can't believe there's almost 300 people in here, and we hadn't even
That's
really started.
insane. That's insane. Oh yeah, that's not too terrible bad how you've got us there. We're joined by Smokemonster, who has a much more exciting background than either of us.
Yeah.
I fired up all my lasers for this special event today.
It's pretty awesome. I noticed you know, is it just like a whole room that's lasers and
Yeah, it's like I've got it all on like a wireless switch. So like I hit this button and it's like a disco in here. It's nuts.
You never know when
And
you
then
might need it.
Yeah, you don't.
So we kind of talked about this last week. Smokemonster is joining us because I'm gonna be playing some random stuff, mainly MSX stuff on the MiSTer FPGA. And for people that don't know exactly what it is, Smokemonster, do you want to kind of give a little summary of what it's about?
Yeah, so the MiSTer. So a lot of people are familiar with the Raspberry Pi, which is a little hobbyist system that you use as an emulator. And it does a really good job. It's software-based. And MiSTer is basically kind of like a supercharged version of a Raspberry Pi. So it's a modular emulation system. And the big difference is that it does its magic using a Cyclone 5 FPGA processor. So it's doing the same type of hardware emulation that the analog Super NT, NT Mini, the AVS, those kind of systems do. And it's just exploded lately. And the difference is that it's a total hobbyist thing. So you build it yourself, put it together yourself, and you can put all of these cores on it for retro game systems, classic game consoles, home PCs. There are lots of arcade cores now for it. And it's just exploded like in the last few weeks. And it's lots of things are going on, and it's a really cool system. So I'm really glad you guys are covering it because it'll give MiSTer a lot of exposure. I mean, everything's open source about it. So
yeah, it's exploded in just the past few weeks. I mean, I was kind of unaware when that was first going on. So has it been around has this kind of been building and building, and it's finally reached this level where people are like, this is doing really cool stuff?
Yeah, it's like so it was spawned in the MIST project years ago, and that it actually started way back like 7 or 8 years ago with the MiniMig core, which is an Amiga core that's really good, which is fun to mess around with. You guys would enjoy a lot of Amiga stuff. And yeah, MiSTer's been around for a year or two, and what happened basically was that I started promoting it when I realized how cool it was. I mean, I had sort of heard of it, but I never really looked into it. I'm big into the analog stuff, though, and the FPGA-based emulation is really interesting. It's really good when analog does it, and so that got me looking into the MiSTer, and I realized all it took for me really was someone in my Discord channel posted a picture of the Burger Time arcade core running on it, and the next morning I had ordered my DE10 Nano, and I was pushing MiSTer, and it's kind of gone from there. So it just took some people really paying attention to it to get it off the ground.
Corey was sort of explaining, you buy like 3 different components and you have to kind of put them together.
Yeah, it's all based around the DE10 Nano by Terasic. It's an FPGA development board. Very powerful, very expensive actually. It has about $300, $350 worth of parts on it. But it's subsidized by Intel to try to spawn development with early and new FPGA developers. It's also used in like embedded devices industrially. So it's a very powerful base. And that is kind of like a Raspberry Pi. And you can run it with just that. And there's about 30% of the cores work just fine like that. Or you can add on the SD-RAM board, which is an add-on board that people make. And that unlocks the entire MiSTer setup.
So is MiSTer the hardware of it? Is it all using pre-configured boards, or not pre-configured, but set boards that exist outside of the MiSTer project. You might buy them for other uses, but the project has identified, okay, these are the parts you need to run this system. Is MiSTer not about developing hardware? It's about
no, MiSTer it has both a hardware and a software side. So the MiSTer project is the MiSTer core that's on there that runs the menus and everything. And then there's kind of a standards for the making the SDRAM board. So it is something that a hobbyist has to build for you. So you buy it. Most people will buy it pre-put together, about $20 or $30 for the SDRAM. And then there's an I/O board, which is really important for the My Life in Gaming crew because it gives you pure analog output in almost any way, any shape and form that you want. And it's at the original resolutions and the original timing of the consoles too, which is for better and worse, as you guys know. That makes it tricky.
Yeah, but, certain monitors for sure.
Yeah, so it's hobbyist. I mean, with just the DE10 Nano is the only real pre-configured part. And then you can build it up as crazy as you want to go from there. I mean, it's going to be, in a year from now, you could have like a tower PC of MiSTer.
Yeah, because there's people working on a whole bunch of parts for it right now. I mean, right now it uses, for controller, like the way I'm using a controller is I have a USB hub plugged into it, and then I have a Super NES Retro receiver connected to that. And then I'm using my 8BitDo gamepad with it.
Nice, yeah.
But a regular in our chats, Ash Evans, is working on a controller board that has a whole bunch of different inputs for controllers. And that'll go like on the bottom of it, right?
Yeah, the LL Cooljoy is what he's calling it, low latency Cooljoy, which will give us direct native inputs for basically any controller ever made via an RJ, like an Ethernet adapter that you'll make. And you can plug in what you'll plug into it natively. It'll have ports for Sega Genesis, arcade, so DB15 like Neo Geo, and then an Ethernet jack where you can plug in any controller ever made, and that will bypass the USB conversion. So it's direct input into the FPGA from the native controllers, which is cool. So it should, lower the latency slightly. Hence the LL.
I see we got 5 New Zealand bucks from Retro Revolutions. So you guys look forward to this one. Will be good as always.
So we'll keep on talking about it. I'm going to switch over since we started a little bit later.
Yeah, let's get started. So
I'm going to be playing an HDMI tonight.
Okay, but have you gotten the analog working?
Yes, I mean I have it, and I had it like with certain cores. I was getting like some streaking on my PVM. I'm not sure if that has to do with like the refresh, but it was just like happening with NES. So I mean, it depends if we're gonna play NES. We'll see. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with appropriately Castlevania
with
for the
Densetsu. Yeah. That I've not really watched any video of this MSX version of this. Yeah, it's weird. It looks pretty.
It doesn't scroll.
Good. Well, I mean, for a version of it that does not scroll, it looks like it could be kind of fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's based on. It's very similar.
I like those trees. Look at those trees.
Yeah, MSX. It's kind of like an NES era home computer, the MSX1.
But it does not do well with scrolling, I don't suppose.
Yeah, it's weird because some games on MSX, it has a lot of NES games, and some of them are better.
Uh-oh. We freeze up? Whoa.
All MSX. So it does MSX, MSX2, 2 plus, or MSX 2 plus, MSX 3, MSX Turbo R. So any version of the MSX, it can run the games for it. And once you get into those,
you need to move our window over.
I got switched. I don't know why it happened. Like something just, you guys froze for a second, and then you keep.
Yeah, I lost y'all for a moment too.
Okay, so it wasn't just me. My time's gonna run out. I can fix that. I will fix that. You guys can continue to talk. Sorry about that. There we go.
And so once you get into the higher MSX systems, MSX2 and those others, the graphics and the color palettes get a lot better.
I know that I saw.
I don't think this is too bad of a color palette. I mean, I kind of like what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, I mean, it's looks pretty good. I know that I saw him in the chat earlier. Is this old console is wondering what version this is based on, this core, and it's actually on all of them. Like when it pops up at the beginning, it says MSX3.
Yeah, so the system itself thinks it's an MSX3 when you boot it up. So that's like what the FPGA is based around. And they went with that because that just lets you basically have everything, every hardware add-on that's needed and everything.
Its ultimate final form.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to be honest. I'm not overly familiar with the MSX library. I mean, I think certainly in the Western world, I think Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 are easily the most famous MSX.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
But outside of that, I mean, I know that there's a version of Ganbare Goemon on it. Outside of that, I don't know much.
Basically, everything I knew about MSX came from the GameSack video before MiSTer.
I don't think I've seen that one.
It covers like every single game for it. I think.
Every single game.
Yeah, I think so. Oh, most of them at least.
That sounds kind of crazy. There's got to be more games than that for it.
Whoa.
Yeah, I don't think they covered every game.
Look at this. It's kind of... It's a little bit of a... It's not straightforward. There's multiple paths you can take.
Yeah, what's up with that wizard in the wall?
I don't know. He said I could pay him hearts, but I didn't have enough. I'm not too good at it yet.
It does make me kind of want to play it though. It's different. But now I was listening to Bob's podcast, and he said something to the effect of as of right now, latency is around 2 frames on MiSTer.
Yeah. So right now, so that's for the HDMI output. So there's zero latency for the analog because there's no conversion going on. So that's cool. But the HDMI right now, actually, the scaler is in a funny place. So the old scaler, the one that's in there now for everything, is being ripped out, basically. And they're developing a completely new scaler from scratch.
Okay.
And it's pretty much ready to go. And it uses 10% of the resources of the old scaler.
Oh.
And it's designed to bring down that, I'm guessing, to less than 1 frame of lag for the HDMI conversion.
So is it going to have like interpolation and stuff on it?
They can add, yeah, it's a lot more configurable for like the different like nearest neighbor, bilinear, sharp bilinear, all that kind of stuff, and it'll work better with it's more configurable basically. The current scaler, you actually, in order to even compile it, you have to own like a $2,000 program or something. So it's a big barrier to development.
So
the new scaler is like open source, and so right now there are test builds for nearest neighbor scaling that Risha put together, and that'll be just baked in when the final scaler is ready to go.
Nice.
So yeah, looking forward to that, and that will definitely, even if it gets it down to 1 frame, that would be a huge improvement. 2 frames, is that like FrameMeister level?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty good.
1 frame and a half, supposedly. But yeah, that's awesome.
And that has the focus right now of Sorge and the main people who are developing for MiSTer 2 have their eyes all over the scaler. So when they're looking at stuff, like, the changes happen pretty big and pretty fast.
Yeah. Well, I'll be curious to see how it compares to, like, say, the scaler in the Super NT, which I love.
Yeah.
I feel like the interpolation on that is like so good.
Yeah, it's so easy to get a good picture out of the Super NT. I love that.
This is like a lot
so
harder
we're talking about
than other ones. It feels like.
Now, is it powerful enough for 4K output?
It is not. So the bottleneck is the amount of GPIO pin, so the direct access pins on the DE10 Nano I mean, maybe the D10 Nano could handle 4K, but the limitation is that we don't have enough inputs and outputs to it.
Got a $5
So the cutoff
donation
is-
saying from
nice.
Sub Element saying,
Sub
love
Element's
this collab, MiSTer for life. Thank you.
Nice. So
yeah,
it
I mean,
can
it
do
sounds like. Oh, go on. I'm
six-
sorry.
1600p is the limit, and there was
that's,
even
that's not bad.
yeah, there was
I'm gonna play something
and
else.
that gives you that's 5x scaling.
Or no.
But-
Or I mean, are you talking about 1600 vertical?
Yeah, 1600 vertical.
That's more than 5x. That's because 1200
Or 1200p. Sorry, yeah, you're right.
1200. Okay, 12.
Yeah.
It's 1200
yeah.
to 5x.
Not 1600. Yeah, 1200. My math's off.
I want to play.
And there was a test build of the NES core showing that off. That was interesting. That'll be way down the line though.
So right now, what are the cores that are considered like pretty good right now?
So MSX is really good. Amiga is really good.
I should have copied over some of that stuff.
A lot of the cores, all of the arcade cores are incredible. They're all
So
really good.
this interface that we're looking at, I mean, I know it's like very basic, but I'm kind of into it. Do
like
all of them look like this?
No.
or is just
This
like MSX?
is MSX.
Okay, so
Yeah,
each core is going to have a different interface.
Yeah. Well, no, they all
Yeah,
use kind of the
exactly.
same look to them, but
Okay.
you
So
can kind of
if
see what I'm
you-
doing right now.
Can you back out to another core, or do you have to like totally reboot the system?
You can do a like a reboot like directly in the menu.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it
I mean,
has
I'm definitely going to have to end up getting this like once like I'll let you be the one to fool with it for now, but once things get a little more advanced and settled, I'll definitely, and maybe there's more hardware available. I'm for sure going to have to do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean it's useful.
Nice.
I mean I'm excited about the Sharp X68000 stuff, especially.
yeah.
I mean that is
Yeah, that's the one that we're really looking forward to.
and you know just having MSX is good for capture. You know.
Mm-hmm. Do you think computer cores are kind of the main focus right now, or
Yeah, there's a bunch of
It's
everything. I mean, there's what is there? I mean, we can look at the cores. These are all like, is this all of them? This is all the PC computer ones I'm looking at. There's a VIC-20. There's Spectrum.
Yeah, the computer cores, a lot of them are super mature just because they either come from different projects where, I mean, some of them are cycle accurate. They're so good, which is essentially a perfect, like Super NT recreation.
Yeah, I mean
of a core.
that's what you want.
are these just like very recently developed the FPGA versions of these?
Some of them date back a long time, and then some of them are relatively new.
Mm-hmm. Are they kind of just adapted from existing emulator
Yeah.
work, or?
Yeah, like MiniMig has gone through several different platforms before it got to MiSTer. So the cool thing about FPGA implementations of things is basically once you have a really good, perfect, hardware implementation captured in FPGA, it's relatively easy for these the wizards, FPGA coders, to move it into the future. So these are really permanent works here that you're looking at.
Mm.
So when we get a DE20 in the future, or even a product by a completely different company, these will be relatively easy to get onto that new platforms, which is cool. So this is real, hardware preservation forever kind of thing.
Well, I mean, it's cool to see something like this catch on. I mean, like obviously, I'm a huge fan of the analog stuff, and what Kevtris is doing, and like the AVS from Bunny Boy and stuff. But it's cool to see this kind of active development be done by more people, because up until now it's just kind of been surrounding these small handful of geniuses, and I know geniuses are working on this too, but it seems like finally this is kind of coming up into the fore, because before we basically had what you could do on the NT Mini and that probably wasn't going to be expanding any further.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just so time consuming. There's just so much that one person can do. Even even little things like so we just got with this new Atari ST core that just came out. We got a cycle accurate Motorola 68,000 soft. It's called a soft core if it's like a component. So the 68,000 is the processor and then the ST and a lot of different systems.
I don't know what just happened there. I waited for that to load and then it's just sitting here. I'm not sure. So I mean,
what game?
Space Manbow. That's the.
Oh, so I have a recommendation for Space Manbow.
Okay. Oh, how to play it?
I have an enhanced version of it with a better frame rate and a bunch of fixes.
Is it already in here?
Yeah, if you go back to the main menu, I'll guide you to these are really the gems of the collection right now. I gave these to Corey especially for the stream.
I'm at the main menu. Is probably
okay. So go into MSX2 and MSX2 hacks, and then open the zip. And then there's Space Manbow fixes and turbo.
All right.
So there are some incredible MSX. These are essentially enhancement hacks by a guy named FRS. These go way back in time. And these are like, if you compare these versions to the original, it's night and day. Like these are 60 frames per second. They have all sorts of like, he's fixed all the weird audio quirks in a lot of them. He's got them all compatible with like every version of the MSX, and turbo crashes some games weirdly. So these are compatible with turbo mode and stuff like that, which is cool. That's really cool. Yeah, these if you'll see in MSX, I have a folder of them and in MSX2, and that's where like you were talking about Metal Gear. There's 2 Metal Gears that he did, Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2. Those are the ones to play for sure.
Yeah, I tried out Metal Gear 2 for a little bit earlier. Snake looks so weird in that game. He looks older than he does in the following games. He's much more grizzled.
You were mentioning early on the analog. You were getting quirks out of it.
Yeah, it's just kind of a weird streaking, and I kind of have a similar problem with my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade PCB on my PVMs.
Ooh, you're in the Turtles Club.
Yeah, I got it before. Like, I guess it's like really, really up there now. But I thankfully got it before it got crazy.
Yeah, I got mine. I have 2 copies of it that I bought broken a long time ago too, and I have Turtles too.
Oh,
yeah. So those weird quirks are sometimes it's just like from the original system, and you can find your way around it through like custom configuration files.
But this one looks like it's scaled differently. It's not like a full screen. It's like more like, because the full screen is usually like just fills up the screen top to bottom.
Are you sure it's not letterboxed?
Yeah, I mean it could be. I mean, it certainly could be. There's no reason why not.
But the nice thing about that new scaler is there will be way more options. Eventually, all that weird hidden stuff in the config files will be in the menu.
Oh, okay.
And it does. The cool thing is it will save your settings for every core. So it'll be like you set it once, and you won't have to deal with it again once you get it working with your setup, which is kind of nice.
So, what do you think is the ceiling with this hardware configuration for arcade games?
Basically, so arcade games, I think right up until people are saying like in terms of hardware power, just pure power of what the D10 Nano could do, right up to about PS2 era is what it can do.
Really?
So you're talking I mean, you're pushing the line up to like Model 3 racers just before that era. You could do Namco System 11, System 12, I'm sure. What it comes down to is the complexity of coding it is the bottleneck.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, from us talking to Kevtris, he's just like, he said like, at least for him, like Neo Geo is as far as it sounds like he's currently interested in going. It's not that the other is impossible, but it would be very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about especially like with this new X68000 core that's perfect. That helps out a lot of stuff. But
oh yeah,
I mean, you look at like the Sega Saturn on paper, it's not the most powerful system on Earth, but it's such a rat's nest for people to code
Right.
and to essentially backwards engineer.
What do you think the likelihood of getting good N64 on this thing is?
People have talked about it. Ash could comment on that more than me. So N64 is a weird one because it's actually pretty powerful in terms of hardware. That's why people are wondering if when Nintendo makes an N64 Mini, how they're going to do it exactly. I mean, there are lots of emulators out there they could use, but it's a little powerhouse.
Yeah, I mean, you would know a lot better than me, but I mean, I've continued to hear that N64 emulation is still not really in a good place.
I have never actually even messed around with it.
Really? So you're not a fan of the system?
Oh, I'm a defender of N64.
Oh, good
because it has Dr. Mario 64 and it has Pokemon Puzzle League, Sin and Punishment, and I mean Dr. Mario 64 is like one of my favorite games of all time. And Pokemon Puzzle League, which is not a Pokemon game, people who are listening, it's like Panel de Pon.
Panel de Pon.
Yeah, those are where it's at for me, and I'm the kind of person who will buy a console if it had one good game. So there you go, 4 or 5 on N64.
I actually did I haven't edited it yet, but for this coming week's Patreon video log, I recorded. I took every single third-party N64 game I have off my shelf, and like in the span of 20 minutes, like talked about each one, like very
nice.
briefly.
That'll be cool.
Like, because I mean, it's like people say, like, oh, N64 has like 2 good games, or some generous people might be like, oh, it has 5 good games. It's like, come on, like, or it's just like,
that
it's
doesn't
just
look right.
games.
I don't know if that's like a side effect of the turbo or the version, just like the background or whatever's going on with the lines.
Yeah, that looks like a glitch.
Oh.
But yeah,
What
so
have
I
we
just
done?
went through the N64 third-party games just for fun. But anyway,
That's cool. And I think it's because, yeah, I mean, it's a system. It doesn't need the world's biggest library. I mean, Sega CD has a really small but very tight library. I know people like to rag on the Sega CD for the same reason.
It's better than people give it credit for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like these days people talk pretty nicely about the Sega CD, but
it's starting to become more and more common to talk nicer about it, I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think back in the day when it was like, this expectation that you had to buy another piece of hardware for your Genesis and stuff, like people were kind of burned by that. But I think especially if like a good optical drive emulator gets released for it, I think people are really going to start to think much more positively of the Sega CD.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be a turning point.
Or, depending on how well it works with like the Mega SG or whatever. Yeah, the N64, I mean, I think that would probably be like, for a significant number of people, their grandest hope and dream for good FPGA.
Oh, should I try?
I don't know.
You want me to try Valis 2 Enhanced?
Absolutely, I want to see you play Valis 2 Enhanced.
This is one of the hacks too.
But I mean, N64. I mean, I don't know really what the current state of emulation is on. I know that I have I approve of the emulation that's like on the Wii Virtual Console, but obviously Nintendo, has their own documentation about how it works, and I don't know who exactly developed that emulator, but I mean, it seems good, at least for the limited number of games that are available. It works there. But I don't know if N64 is a challenge of the system isn't properly reverse engineered, or if it's just a challenge of how it works. I don't know. But I would love to see what the stable environment of an FPGA could do for N64.
Yeah, that's one. A lot of people have talked about it. And so another interesting thing with MiSTer, speaking of N64, is that, so if you notice that the development of the course, kind of the trajectory of what's happening, it's kind of like you're building from you're taking steps from one system to a more complex system. And it's kind of like what they're doing is they're building up a database of these soft cores, the parts that make up a console. And the more of those that the more sound chips that you have backwards engineered in FPGA, it's kind of like these genius coders can take that piece out and build up to more complex systems.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why you see, especially with the arcade cores, it's starting with the really classic ones, specifically because it's like they're porting each one of the parts on them. But those parts are all used in consoles. And so it could be a matter of N64 gets built up to at some point, and then somebody takes on the CPU, and that's what pushes it over.
Yeah.
The same thing with like 68,000.
Does N64 really use a lot of parts in common with
as far as I know, yeah, it's not using tons of customized Cs, I don't think.
If
There's
I recall,
decapping them.
I didn't fully understand, but someone Kevtris was saying when we interviewed him back in December, he was saying something about the type of RAM that N64 used would be a concern.
Yeah, I would have. We need like Artemio, who's in the chat here, someone to.
He says
comment on that.
N64 is quite custom.
Okay.
So from your point of view, what excites you about FPGA versus software emulation?
So I mean I'm a big fan of software emulation. Like there's nothing wrong with it. Like I love my Pi.
I agree.
I have the Wii virtual stuff. Basically everything Nintendo does, they do it really well. They bring in a lot of really good people to do their emulation. Mm-hmm. My Vita is basically a RetroArch machine. That's basically that. I use it for that and running Adrenaline for PS1 and PSP on it. But I don't know. To me, it's almost like getting I've explained it this way before. It's like getting a hot rod to play around with. That's what the FPGA is. And especially when we're talking about like getting the latency down to like the low, if we can get it down to one frame total, then it's going to really burn rubber.
Right. I mean, I think for me, it's knowing that you don't have the operating system overhead, the unknowable configurations and hardware that could be in every system. I mean, it could be all over the place when you're running a software emulator. You don't know what kind of system that's going to be running on. But with FPGA, even if it is not designed exactly properly, you know that it's going to be operating in a predictable environment. And eventually,
I think the Psycho World won't work. I think I did hear that. Okay. This is one I just did the other day. I'm sorry about that.
Sorry.
Yeah. These might actually, I might have combined.
I might
them
switch
wrong.
to a
That
different
might be
core.
The problem here.
I really want to mess with the Master System.
Do you want me to recommend a game to you?
How about a Master System game? I'm switching over to the Master System.
Yeah, okay, so Master System though is a very early core, just to warn you.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I have like my whole collection on here, so I'll just pick something.
It works, but people are gonna notice that the sound is still off.
Well, I don't know.
Master System and Genesis are in heavy development right now, basically.
Do you need a BIOS file for this?
Mm-mm.
I think we've got it actually set up with a BIOS file, maybe where it needs to go. Or maybe they did reverse engineer it for this. I'm not really sure.
The button.
Yeah, what excites me or asking is it just feels more real too. Because when you're playing an emulator, it sometimes, I don't know, it might be a psychological thing, but you feel...
it is. I mean, a lot of people will tell you that it's not a psychological thing and you're just being silly, but like a lot of people... I was joking earlier in the week that I joked on Twitter, said, I wonder how many people are subscribed to us just so they could say, or just emulate it as soon as the new video goes up.
Oh yeah, anytime you talk about video quality, that's the response people give you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we need to say something in like future episodes that might be similar to the Castlevania episode. We need to say like, hey, we're looking at the versions of the game that have been released.
Yes.
And if you wish to, emulate it, that's totally cool. Take this information and apply it to your favorite emulator, but we're not like, it would just get too endless. And people who are big into emulation already know how they like to emulate.
Yeah.
So,
there are all those guides out there for every specific emulator anyways. It would take a lifetime to make that video covering every emulator. Yeah, I am, in terms of what's done already, the Amiga is the one that excites me the most. Because it's the system that looks... It's the system I knew almost nothing about before MiSTer, really. And when I started looking into it, it's kind of a hybrid between a console and the home PC, really. It brings them together. It has a really good look to it, like DOS era look. But it's also there's a lot of DOS games on it. Like a game I played a lot growing up was DuckTales Quest for Gold on my PC.
I did not know there was a DuckTales PC game.
And I loved it growing up, but looking back on it, it's not a pretty game on DOS. Man, does it looks so good on the Amiga, and the Amiga has incredible sound chip too. So these DOS games that you grew up with, you can find them if they're on Amiga. A lot of them look glorious on there.
Now, what about DOS? Is DOS on this yet?
Yeah, DOS is there, and it's a great core. It's just right now they're working on increasing the processor for it. So the processor speed is like maxes out at like 15 megahertz right now. So that's really limiting you to early DOS games for the most part. And they'll get it up, I'm sure, to like 60 or 70 megahertz.
I feel like DOS and like early Windows games, like that would be pretty awesome.
You can install Windows 3.1 when you launch the DOS core. The way it's set up, it just starts installing Windows on there. It's kind of funny.
That is funny.
And the Amiga CD32, speaking of a console, is 100% supported in MiSTer. So it can, and it boots up exactly the same in the menu as an Amiga game. So that's a real console that a lot of us have seen pictures of, maybe heard a little bit about. But that's going to be a cool one to explore. A real powerhouse for its time, I guess. A small library.
I don't know Quartet too well outside of the video Corey did like a long.
I have a copy of this for you, waiting for you, and I think you're gonna really like it. I hope you stream it.
Oh yeah, I barely even remember. Where'd you end up buying a copy of this?
I saw it for real cheap someplace.
Was it a long time ago?
I've had it for a while, yeah.
This is an awesome looking game.
It is a great game. It may be one of my favorite top 5 on the system for sure. It's like this, Phantasy Star and Rambo are probably my 3 favorite games on the system.
Are you noticing anything?
No, it feels fine
about it. How's the music? Pretty accurate?
I mean, I can't hear it too well.
Okay. There's kind of an interplay between the Genesis core updates and SMS, and Genesis audio is being worked on really heavily lately, and those will all work their way down into the SMS too, to get it. People are saying it's just off a little bit, kind of.
Yeah, I mean that's really hard sound chip to get right.
What's your personal feeling on Master System? FM sound versus the
I am a PSG fan.
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
I mean, I did not grow up with Master System. Have no nostalgia for it at all. But something about the FM stuff just feels like it does not belong. It feels out of place, and I don't like it.
I
feels
agree.
like they're trying too hard or something. I don't know.
I think it sounds too smooth.
Yeah, something's just really off about it to me.
It sounds like someone's playing the music on a cheap keyboard to me. is how I.
Yeah. It's just it's not right. It feels like, and the music always feels like a little bit remixed from the original, and they're always like, I don't know, trying to, give it a different spin or something. It's just, I don't like it. Don't like it. I
I
can't.
went to great lengths to get my Nomad playing supporting FM audio when we got that update for the Mega EverDrive, and then I just don't like it generally.
Yeah.
Or I prefer PSG is how I'd put it. Yeah.
So Corey, how much money have you put into this so far?
The DE Nano and I just died. But like I just got the DE Nano. I was sent a unit from Tinkerblank to mess around with. So thank you to him. And that's really, I don't know how
Jacob
much
got excited that you were interested in MiSTer. And he was like, he hooked you up. I think you're the first person that he made boards for, probably.
Yeah, I mean,
he started producing them. He wanted to get them to you fast, which is cool.
Yeah. I mean, he's the one that's kind of, he has like the storefront to do it. Like that's what he's doing. He has actually a site that's like kind of dedicated.
Yeah,
right? Like
he did
previously, before that, you can only get it like through like forum posts. And
and it's back to that now, basically. There's one other person. I tweeted the other day of one person who's making them and selling directly.
Oh, okay.
What happened was Jacob was going to make a huge run of them, and we thought it would last a little while, but it sold out in like less than a day.
Oh,
100
really?
boards.
Really?
And 100 sets of boards, so 100 IO and 100 SD RAM.
Oh, we got
that takes an hour to build an IO board. So he's got his work cut out for him.
Try, do you want to read that?
Donation from We got a donation from Brett Bates, $5. Thank you. Saying, is there any plan to bring Tandy graphics and sound compatibility to the PC x68 core?
I don't know exactly. You'd have to ask the people working on that.
This will be a little taste of why you should get this version, I guess.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time streaming some Adventure Island games this week for an upcoming episode I was recording, and Tri was playing through the rest of Bomberman.
Yeah, I caught part of that. I'm looking forward to that episode because I just get the games confused in this series.
Oh yeah, I mean we are big fans. Wonder Boy games appear in more episodes than any other game ever has, basically.
I mean, mostly Wonder Boy and Monster World.
Yeah, specifically like the Genesis one, but it's one of our favorites for sure.
Did you see the hacks of Wonder Boy and Monster World that I've got? I've got some crazy ones.
Oh, I didn't know it was a popular hack game.
So the Master System one or the Genesis one? Monster Land or World?
Okay, now you see, here's my problem with Monster Boys. I'm always getting them mixed up.
Is this the Genesis Monster World game that you're talking about?
Because I know there's a lot of hacks for that because it uses the EEPROM for saves, so they switched it over to SD RAM. Like they have hacks for that. But that's...
let's see. I think I was talking about the Master System version.
What game uses an EEPROM?
Monster World.
Wonder Boy Monster World. So there's no battery in it.
As far as I know, no, because that's like they had to come out with like hacks that like will do the switch with the SD RAM.
Yeah, so it's the Monster Boy 3. Is that the one? Is that Monster World? Or Wonder Boy Monster World? Is that Wonder Boy 3?
Monster World 3.
Monster World 3 Wonder Boy 5.
Cracks me up every time I hear it. But
the Japanese version is called that.
So yeah, what I took was, these aren't hacks like level edit hacks. So there are like enhancement hacks for Wonder Boy. And I just started stacking them all up. Everything I could find, like the save hack, the FM hack, the EverDrive detection, controller detection hack. I put them all together, and the game still worked after that, which was kind of cool. So I made like this super, extreme version of Wonder Boy 3 with all of those hacks combined. I think I passed it along to Corey.
Oh yeah, the Monica ones. Yep, I got them.
Oh, and I hopefully I included this one too that I'm talking about. Yeah, I also did the exact same hacks to the Turma de Monica, which is this weird Brazilian hack of it that turns it into a Monica game.
Well, it's not a hack. I mean, it's a real version, right?
Yeah, it's a real game. It's a tech toy, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and speaking of boards, going back, Renee from DB Electronics is going to have I/O boards and SD-RAM made in a factory, hopefully. And that, if he can pull it off, will basically break down the barrier.
Yeah.
Because then he'll be able to, hit a button and order 100 of them.
Also,
So
Corey,
that will be
holy
big.
smokes, there are 501 people watching you.
Jeez. What?
Nice.
Is that a record? That's got to be a record.
It's got to be
No
darn
pressure.
close.
I don't think even Kevtris has pulled in that many viewers.
I think that he pulled in just about that many. I think. I did.
It was maybe around that, but geez.
So some people are asking about the Cyclone 5 and the chat comments. And one interesting thing is, so the Cyclone 5 isn't just one processor. It's a little family of different FPGA processors. And the one that is in the MiSTer is like the most powerful version of it, I think. And so it's, in specs at least, it's significantly more powerful than the one that's in like the analog products.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how you can get like why the cores boot up so fast and things like that. Whereas like on an NT Mini, which there's kind of a delay, you have to reboot the system and stuff like that. So it gives you a little more overhead. The Cyclone 5 that's in the DE10 Nano, which is cool.
Interesting.
And I don't know did you guys see the news that Furtek posted the last week, maybe 2 weeks ago? He is working. If you know, Furtek has been working for like years on FPGA, Neo Geo, MVS, AES, and CD. And he mentioned one day that he thought that maybe it could work on the MiSTer if it had a different SD-RAM design. And so when he said that, I decided to do a live stream because I was very excited to hear that. And we did like a Patreon raid on him, and like he got like 20 or 30 patrons like in an hour, and he's kind of exploded. And now he said he's gonna bring Neo Geo to MiSTer.
Wow.
And that will be not just your average core, but he's doing it the really hard way. Like he is decapping the actual chips, so dissecting them and putting them under a microscope and recreating them.
I mean, that's what I like to hear. I mean, that's that's what I love to hear. Poking and prodding the hardware, getting it. Not just basing it on what you read or what's already done.
Yeah. So there's two ways to do FPGA. One is to do it that way, which is the hard way, this very, very slow way. It's almost an impossible task to an average human being. You have to be kind of a god of FPGA to do what he's doing. And then there's another way, which is kind of the way that Kevtris does it, simply because, if you have to make something in a year, you don't have 5 or 6 years to work on it. You do it by, you create your version of the chip, and then you basically, the way that he does it is he'll have a 68,000, for example, that he has on a dev board, and then he'll have his version of it. And he said, like, he got it to the point where you can feed it 175,000 different commands, and both react the same way. Right. So that's kind of the other way of going at it, is creating a cycle-accurate version of it based on the way that it reacts to what you've done.
Right.
And the only other core like that is that I believe some of those really old home PC cores and the Atari ST core is going to be cycle accurate to that degree, and maybe the MiniMeg core, people are saying, could be on that level. And hopefully, 68,000. 68,000 is very early and doesn't work on MiSTer essentially right now. It boots up, but that's being ported from another system. But it is going to get that 68,000 soft core. that will basically like change the engine in it. You know, it's replacing the core processor in the 68,000, so that could be huge. And that would be another one. Like I am equally as excited about 68,000 as I am about Neo Geo. And even I've said before, X68000 almost makes the Neo Geo look like it's wearing short pants to some degree when you start looking at its library. I mean, it's a serious arcade lover's dream.
Yeah.
And you're talking I mean, this is like what Capcom was using to program CPS-1 and CPS-2 games back in the day. There's pictures of them doing that.
You can see some weirdness going on with this one, with ease here.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still pretty decent.
The music is definitely.
I see some shimmer on that brick wall building.
Yep.
Need that interpolation.
Yeah.
need that interpolation.
Or just like 4x scale, or any kind of.
Well, you were talking about Neo Geo and Neo Geo CD earlier. Like, do you know if are there any hardware differences with Neo Geo CD? I don't know much about.
Yes.
Neo Geo CD.
So Neo Geo CD, I love it. I have two CDZs and a CD myself. I love it. I'm a big proponent of Neo Geo CD simply because it's a great system for people who don't want to have to mess with super guns and building your own controllers and everything. Mm-hmm. You know, it's an MVS ready to go. The caveat is that it has a very small cache on it that makes it, of course, the CDs boot really slow, but it has less memory on it essentially than an MVS or an AES. And so the games, if you're really, if you're really looking closely at them, the characters in a lot of games have less frames of animation and the sprites are a lot smaller. But on the other side, it has, Redbook quality audio. And some games like Metal Slug has the combat school. So the games have lots of extra features. So what I am picturing in my head is kind of like once you have FPGA Neo Geo and Neo Geo CD, you could combine the best qualities of both of them and just mix parts essentially to get.
Do you think it would be relatively easy to just do a straight up MVS port of the game to a Neo Geo CD?
Well, that's what happened.
I actually have messed around with that a little. Yeah,
that's what they did with Ironclad on the Wii.
Ironclad was a
CD game,
CD exclusive, and they got it. They found a prototype of it. I think in the Wii Virtual Stores where it first appeared.
Yeah, and then they were able to extract the ROM from that, and because I have it on cartridge, because they.
Nice.
You could. Yeah. They extracted it from, the emulator on the Virtual Console, and they made it so you could put it on a cartridge.
Yeah. And and the other cool things that Neo Geo can do, for a game like I think Baseball Stars 2, for example, on the MVS, the audio is like 22 kilohertz, I think, and it's very scratchy sounding. And so when they released it on the CD, they didn't give it a Redbook quality audio, like a range soundtrack, but what they did was they took the chip tunes and they recorded them played back at 44 kilohertz or whatever CD quality audio is, and then they put that into the game. So if you play Baseball Stars 2 on the CD, it's the MVS version with the MVS soundtrack, but played at like double the resolution essentially. It sounds really good. So CD is a very cool system, I think, and I know it takes a lot of guff because of its load times.
Yeah, but if the CDZ, is it the CDZ that's the one is twice as fast?
Yeah, CDZ is a lot faster.
But it's still not that fast.
And honestly, we live in an age where you wait 15 minutes for a game download nowadays. I mean, the CDZ runs laps around that kind of load times, right?
That's true. But it's a one-time only.
Is the sort of the green outline that surrounds objects that pass over the grid, is that
Oh, that's normal because yeah, I mean, it's all because the way the Master System does it, it's all background layers. It's updating, and that's why you get the box around everything. You'll notice around all the enemies too. And explosions.
It's so crazy what the games that they can squeeze out of this hardware.
Oh, and the Master System? Yeah.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. I was talking about so when we're talking about mixing parts, So I thought that a really good core that someone could do for arcade would be Sega 16 or 18 or Sega 24, because those are kind of like, the Sega 16 was like the arcade version of the Master System. Uses lots of Master System parts, but it's kind of like super powered.
Well, systems,
so
yeah, I mean, it's a Genesis essentially.
And you would think that once you have all of the parts from the Genesis done, it would just be a matter of somebody like doing the logic for that.
Oh yeah, I mean that's one thing that I'm definitely hoping for, is like System 16 games for sure.
Has anyone ever made an emulator that could play M2's Fantasy Zone 2?
I mean, in reality, you should just be able to pull the ROM off of it and they could probably get it working in MAME, yeah. Because it's just the Fantasy Zone 1 board with more RAM.
The board would have to be modified with some extra RAM, right?
Yeah, I mean, but that's
would it work in MAME without further modifications, I wonder?
I don't know. Our team would probably know. If our team is in the chat, he's probably is familiar if it's been done. I can't imagine it would be very hard with what they've already done with MAME, because it was built on like on arcade hardware. Like they worked within those limitations.
Right.
Yeah. MAME a lot of what was done in MAME feeds right into MiSTer too. It's kind of I've called MiSTer MAME 2.0. Both because, like Lon TV was saying, it really feels like the early days of MAME right now with all of the different systems coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Then every week we're getting a new system ported, which is a really big deal. And a lot of the work in like MAME has all the ROMs for the games. So when you need the EPROMs, the mask ROMs, and all that kind of stuff, it's all there for them to pick through. It's all really well documented in MAME.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a matter of sort of getting the hardware then that's on the board to converted or code. I guess it's more like converting a schematic when you're talking about FPGAs than it is with MAME, where you're doing a software kind of emulation.
So someone in the chat says, "Don't get me wrong, this stuff is great, but I'd rather just use original hardware," and I would too. But I mean, certainly, I mean, we're looking at Master System here. I mean, playing a Master System is not difficult, but when you're talking about arcade games that are playable, in a hardware environment with this, no, it's not original hardware, but it is a hardware-based environment that Neo Geo, that's a little more inaccessible to a lot of people. Of course, that's not available yet, but in a lot of these like Japanese computers and British computers and that kind of stuff, like it makes possible to play and record things in a way that is more authentic, at least by the standards that, I mean, maybe it's not there yet, but it has the potential to get there.
And things
that's
like,
what's exciting. Things that are more inaccessible. I mean, NES on this thing, that'll be great, and I'm sure people will have that running like perfectly eventually. I would never play NES on this. I mean, I would probably mess around with it once and then never touch it again. But stuff like arcade games and more obscure systems and PC platforms, that is what is exciting about this to me.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I would love to have a cool, really big MSX setup in my house. I mean, that would be great. I don't see it happening unless I win the lottery or something.
Yeah. Same with Sharp.
And it's also that's a
mess
I
up right
love
there.
68,000. Every time I look into 68,000, I just get sticker shock. And things like super graphics. Like I know that we have super graphics, all of us, I think.
Well, not me.
Most people don't. You guys have a real one that you can record with. Most people don't. I mean, really, graphics. It's got 5 or 6 games. It's an interesting novelty. It's cool if you have one, but this could save people a lot of money. One, and then it extends the hardware even too. So I really think MiSTer's Amiga and MiSTer's MSX, it can do things the original hardware can't do. So with the original hardware, you're limited to these tiny little hard drives in there that were out back in the day. with MiSTer, we can take the perfect hardware implementation, but we can extend it to the limits of like FAT16 or FAT32. We can put 4 GB hard drives in, 2 of them. And so you can have one MiSTer setup of MSX that has every MSX game ever released on 2 hard drives, like at your fingertips. And you just could never do that with real hardware.
Right.
Or if you could, you would have to be you would have to dedicate a year of your life to figuring it all out and getting it all set up somehow.
And, you know, I'm sure that, you know, once people get Super Nintendo stuff going, you know, there will be a MSU1.
Yeah. Speaking of that, so I am currently building a human FPGA coder from scratch.
What?
I'm building a Frankenstein. So I did. So Victor Villela, who did, he's like the godfather of SA1 stuff on the Super Nintendo. He basically built the tools that like Super Mario World SA1 hackers use to make these like crazy Super Mario worlds that can do things that the real hardware was never designed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he's in electrical engineering school, and he's studying FPGA stuff. And he has like a 10-year-old dev board right now, a DE1. And he has like IBM computers that he's built on it, and that could all come to MiSTer. But the problem is he's in Brazil, and getting these parts in Brazil is super expensive. So even getting a DE10 Nano here, you're talking like a month's wage for him.
Jeez.
And so I did a little fundraiser, just expecting to buy a D10 for him, and then Tinkerplunk, Jacob offered to build him some boards, which is awesome. But we raised a ton of money, like in one day, way more than I thought we could raise. So we got him a DE10 Nano, we got him a full MiSTer setup, we've got him EEPROM burners for doing SA1 stuff. QC Retro is donating an SA1 development board that he built, a custom cart.
Jeez.
He's bought in a scope, the one that Bob was recommending, the Owen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm bringing all of that back for him in about a month, in addition to an SD2S NES that I got him through a previous fundraiser. Huge. So we're getting this FPGA, and the SD2S NES, by the way, has a Cyclone 4 in it, people. So it's FPGA. It's using FPGA emulation for the special chips. And so I'm bringing all that back for him. He's going to get bombed with all this stuff. And so we're going to have a Super Nintendo FPGA wizard coming to MiSTer. And he's especially good at special chip stuff.
That's awesome.
Troy's like really wants to go ahead and get an SD to SNES now. He's been...
Yeah, I like SA1 is like, it's basically finalized by now, right?
Yeah, it's essentially perfect.
Do we know, is there going to be an official firmware that the save state edition is going to be on, you think? Because I know that
I do believe that'll make it in. I mean, I've seen them talking about that on the Classic Gaming Discord, Akari, and people behind that. So I do think it'll make its way in. Right now, I think more testing is what they're dealing with.
Right. I mean, that stuff is it's just
there
really
is
convenient.
Official firmware with SA1 at now, though, right?
Yeah, I think SA1 and Super Effects now are in the firmware.
I should do a quick video on just like all that stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll wait till
it's super popular. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to just bite the bullet and buy one, because that was the big thing I was waiting for, because one of the Super Nintendo games that I want to play a fan translation of is Marvelous, and that's an SA1 game, and I feel like that was the big thing holding me back from an SD2S NES, because I'm not a big flash card guy. I like to play my cartridges as much as possible. I acknowledge that they're handy and helpful and stuff, but I like to play my real cartridges because I feel like it sort of limits me in what I can choose to play, and that causes me to spend more time with the game.
Oh yeah.
Versus just selecting from the list. But obviously, this kind of hardware has its uses and places even for me, and that's a good example. But I was like, that's one of the big Super Nintendo things I want to do, and nothing can do it other than a straight up emulator.
Right.
Yeah, or really expensive repros.
Yeah, and I don't. Yeah, I don't want to do that either. So, you know,
Yeah.
I kept feeling like that was the big thing holding me back from getting an SD2 SNES. It's like, there's this one big thing I really want to do, but I can't do it. And I was kind of holding off because I was like, I know they say the hardware is finalized, but what if they can't do it with this hardware?
Mhm.
Like, maybe there will be another hardware, but it seems like it's true that it does not need more hardware.
Yeah. One thing that I have a recommendation too. So these like SD2 SNES especially, it holds its value really well. Because I bought mine like 4 or 5 revisions ago. I bought the really early
I've not
one.
tried TurboGrafx.
And every time a new revision of it came out, I'd put my old one on eBay, explaining what it is, blah blah blah. And it would sell for like 10 or 15 bucks less than buying a brand new one.
Wow.
So I would like sell it off. You know, you take the hit on the eBay fee or whatever, but then you get an upgrade to whatever the latest and greatest revision is.
So what for you? I mean, obviously, I think for you it makes sense to have the latest revision. But what are the tangible differences?
If you so the main thing is MSU1. You want to have the latest revision, revision H or J. They're essentially both the exact same thing. J just has a micro SD card slot now instead of regular SD. And it has, there were lots of revisions trying to get MSU1 audio right. Because MSU1 games were originally designed in emulation.
Right.
And they play great in emulators and all the audio levels are right. But getting that translated to hardware, it was kind of tricky. And so what Akari did in this revision H was he put an op amp on there that's just for MSU1. So he added more hardware on it just to deal with the MSU1 stuff.
Okay, because that's something I was confused about regarding MSU1 on SD2 SNES. I was not sure if MSU1 was a dedicated chip on it or if it was part of the basic FPGA on it.
So the MSU1, it's a special chip that never actually existed. You could do MSU1. You could actually build one. But what it does is it programs that Cyclone 4 to become an MSU1, basically. The FPGA chip. And then the audio is streamed from the cartridge at a high rate, the Redbook audio. So it's combining all the superpowers of the SD2 SNES into this theoretical chip that never existed.
Right. But it's more than theoretical. It functions as sound hardware. But you were saying that you had to you had to buy new revisions to have all the MSU1 stuff. So is there separate hardware on the board just for MSU1 then?
Yeah, it's got its own audio op amp now that specifically just kicks in for MSU1 and nothing else. And that was just.
But otherwise, the MSU1, the bulk of the MSU1 hardware is just part of the FPGA that gets reprogrammed. Or is it reprogrammed, or is you select the things, or are all the optional chips just already sitting out there?
Yeah, it's reprogrammed. So it's an on-the-fly, like when you flash a Super Effects game, it's flashing just Super Effects chip onto the FPGA.
Look at how serious this guy is working in the boot shop here.
He's got a crazy hat.
Yeah.
What version of the game is this?
This is the PC Engine. It's Bikkuriman World or whatever. So I'll be playing this probably this week at some point.
It's kind of bizarre looking.
Yeah, it almost looks like the characters look very similar to Dynastic Hero. They're
that's what I was saying. There's like this
like Beetle or whatever.
I mean, is that what's going on here? I mean, it's very strange.
Maybe.
PC Engine brought a lot of people over to MiSTer.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff on here.
Every time you like talk about analog stuff, people start talking about their favorite systems. Everybody has their favorite, like, oh, I want to see Neo Geo or PC Engine or blah blah blah. And we kind of expected that maybe one day we'd get PC Engine, but nobody saw Super Graphics come in, I don't think.
Yeah.
And the fact that this core's like first appearance had pretty much perfect Super Graphics support kind of just knocked our socks off, and that was a real tipping point.
What's the status of this core in general for just running regular PC Engine games?
It's excellent. I mean, it's like there's a few tiny little quirks with a few games that are left. It'll get major upgrades, as time goes by, because this is a really early core too, and there's lots of people looking into it. Like, there is no reason that the MiSTer can't do PC Engine CD, by the way, and there are very talented people looking into that right now.
Well, because that's what I was asking. So it's not there yet.
It's not supported yet. It's totally doable though. Plug-in, it'll be probably running. You'll put your images on like an external USB drive, I'm guessing, and plug it in there, and it'll boot them from that.
So other than
I'm guessing that's all of it.
Other than the system card, is there any dedicated hardware in the CD system?
Not really. It's not like a Sega CD.
Right,
so it's
right.
basically, it's like plugging a CD-ROM drive into your computer. It's not like adding extra processors and all that kind of crazy stuff.
That's what I thought.
Mm-hmm. Lots of people want Sega CD too, but yeah, as you're saying, like that seems way harder to do. Because the Sega CD, most people don't know, is such a powerhouse of what it does to the Genesis. Increasing the color support and putting basically a completely extra processor and graphics chip on there.
Corey, I can tell you that if we ever put this game in a video, it would be a very common.
What is that game?
What game? What game is this? I do want to know because it looks kind of cool.
Well, this is the Japanese version. It's a Mystic Defender.
Oh, okay.
Let me change the region.
This is the game that you were thinking of doing like a video.
Yeah, I have
on,
a full
years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I have a full. Let's see if it defaults to Japan, but let's see if it shows the American version. If I switch, yep.
Is it kind of a different style?
Yeah, it's just a different main character. It's a pretty difficult game, but I think it's a very good game.
Is this Master System we're looking at?
No, this is Genesis.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize.
There is a version called Spellcaster. It's
I don't know why
kind of a prequel to this.
There was parallax in it.
But this is definitely, this was in the Genesis.
It's a basic looking game, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fairly early game, but
yeah.
It
looks
I feel like beating this game is one of the games that is very much a crowning achievement of my childhood, that I was able to beat this game, because it's tough. I mean, it's a tough game, and it's one of those games I played it every night for like a couple of weeks until I eventually finished it. I mean, it probably not as hard as I remember it being, but at the time,
well, yeah, you got a playthrough of it recorded.
Yeah, but I mean, I used the Game Genie, I think, to do that.
This has a very arcadey look to it. I like that.
But yeah, I mean, I think this would probably be one of those. What is that game? At 2:15.
Definitely.
What? You should have not made the title MSX.
I know.
You should have known you would have been jumping around.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it's with what you've got available to get running. I don't think MSX is sustainable for that long off the stream.
It seemed like a good hook. It's like, oh.
Sure. Well, it's brought in 534 people.
Yeah.
Somehow. Even though we're playing Genesis now.
You definitely, before the night's over, should check out Amiga. I can point you to a few games.
I don't know if I have any games on here, though. That's the thing.
Oh, okay.
Corey, what is your storage solution on this right now?
I'm just using it. I just had an 8 gig card. That's what I'm using.
Okay, so everything you got on here is just on 8 gig card.
Okay.
Yeah.
Connected via how?
There's a micro SD slot on it.
Okay.
You can do so with MiSTer, you can do USB hard drives supported, and you can even
But that's only through the hub right now. I mean, there's no real USB, full size USB port on it. And that's, I guess that's important to know, because I had to get a little little micro USB to full size USB hub. It was like $6, but it's
Yeah, that is an important note because you get it and you're like, how do I connect controllers?
yeah. Oh, we got the cat is coming to visit like all the time now. Like it doesn't even care that I'm streaming. It's gonna come and hang out now.
I think my kitty's sleeping in the other room. He'll usually come in here and chase some lasers around here and there.
Yeah, I don't think she's ever like shown up on the stream before. Until now.
MiSTer does Game Boy, but not Game Boy Color. The importer is asking in the chat.
Yeah, I don't have any
games coming.
Any Game Boy games on it right now.
Game Boy is another core that works really well, but it's really early too, and people can notice little things with it, quirks here and there.
That's one of my favorite things about the Super NT is using the Super Game Boy 2 on it, because in my opinion that is no less valid and in fact arguably more valid than using Super Game Boy 2 on a real Super Nintendo. Because it's still Game Boy hardware, but it's just the interface is different. But it doesn't matter whether you're using it on Super Nintendo or Super NT. Like it's still like it's running the exact same hardware, legit. In fact, if you're using a Super Game Boy 1, in my opinion, it's literally is more legit on the Super NT than the regular Super Nintendo, because it actually does bring the speed. If you base the clock speed off of the system, it actually
do that.
Well, I mean, it's automatic on the Super Game Boy 1. The clock speed is based on the Super Nintendo system clock. So
yeah, that's right.
So since the Super NT in HDMI mode is running slightly slower, technically, I'd say it's a little more accurate.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And really, the even with Super Game Boy 2, if you're running on a Super Nintendo, there's, I want to say, like once every 3-ish seconds, there's a duplicate frame. It's the space between duplicate frames is slightly longer on the Super NT because of it being bound to a 60 hertz refresh. So
that wasn't about that.
For Super Game Boy 2, I think Super NT is more accurate because there's less duplicate frames. It's definitely interesting, which does not affect the speed. It does affect the speed for Super Game Boy 1, but since the system speed is based on the internal crystal and the Super Game Boy 2 hardware, the speed of the game is not impacted, just how frequent the system comes back with a duplicate frame. I think it's interesting.
I think it's interesting to hear you talk about it.
I demonstrated in the Super NT video, but I can't remember how well it actually conveyed.
I love Road Rash. I was just playing it the other day.
I've got the trilogy on cartridge.
Yeah, it's great. The first two, third one, I don't own the third one. I don't own the Sega CD one either. Oh,
hey, we got five Canadian dollars from the importer, who's been a long-time supporter of the show. Where do you guys see the MiSTer FPGA project in a year from now? Do you guys think the SNES, PCE, CD, and Sega CD will be possible in a year?
I think so. I'm not a betting man, but if I were, I would put my money for sure on PC Engine CD. That will be supported. And probably you'll have a Super Nintendo core, because there are several different FPGA Super Nintendos out there, and there's one Japanese developer who has actually just started looking into the MiSTer. Like he put out kind of a Hello World showing his cord just booting up on MiSTer, and it has like it supports the A button, and that's it.
Well,
But I think he was
gotta
just getting
gotta start somewhere.
Yeah. He was getting bugged so much, and it's a really good core. It's just built, I think, on one of the other DE, DE1 or something dev boards. So it needs to sort of get ported over. I think we'll see that.
I mean, it definitely sounds like I need to wait a while before jumping on MiSTer, but it definitely sounds like something that's going to be pretty exciting within a year from now.
I think you should get in just simply for the amount of one, because it's really good for streaming, but two, even if, I mean, none of these console cores even really matter if you guys own the hardware, but like the Amiga core on its own, and in a year from now especially, you'll have I'm sure we'll have 68,000, hopefully, praying for that. But just the Amiga core, just mini MIG, an FPGA of that is pretty incredible. And there's so much stuff in there, so much new stuff, especially that you guys will be interested in. I know, because I kind of think you guys are. I'm not so much a home PC person at all. I'm a console person.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But MiSTer, I'm saying it's bringing together all of the dark arts of gaming. Like, it brings together FPGA coding, PCB design, 3D design. It brings together the home PC world, the console world, the arcade world. It's the first device that really brings this all together. Yeah. And it's making it to where, like, I mean, I don't want to learn the command lines, honestly, for an Amiga. I don't want to learn the command lines for MSX. That setup so that you've got, for example, that's not how an MSX generally works.
Right.
That's a custom menu that's all set up, and the Amiga is the same way. You normally would have to have a keyboard plugged in, unless you're going to set up your own custom menu or whatever. So MiSTer makes it really easy to share those kind of custom configurations that are more suitable to, like, using a controller instead of a keyboard and things like that. So a year from now, I mean, it's like every week we're getting a new core. So a year is such a long time, and we could have hundreds of cores by then if it continued at the rate that it's going. And you'll see huge,
especially if you consider like arcade cores being oftentimes their own individual thing.
Yeah, most people don't appreciate the arcade cores so much. That's a good point, because like these arcade cores, it's all the work of a console, but for one game.
Yeah.
So yeah. So it's like translating the PCB of an arcade game is a really magnificent thing.
There's probably a lot of overlapping parts, especially in the arcade world, though.
Yes. Like Ash is grabbing all sorts of parts from different projects in order to work on things. Like he's working on CPS-1. He's working on an Arkanoid core. He's pretty far along with several other projects that are really interesting.
Sorry, this game, it cracks me up because it's like you do some like atrocious stuff in this game, and it was not a big deal back then. Yeah, you know, like I beat that cop off of his motorcycle with this club that I picked up from somebody else.
Corey, which would you say was the more challenge? I mean, I know you had a lot of help with this. Like, which would you say is more challenging to set up? Because I know you were really frustrated trying to set up a Raspberry Pi between this and that.
I mean, the Raspberry Pi, like it was just annoying at the time. Like I could never get it quite right to like load games correctly off of a flash drive that I wanted to use instead of just like putting it all on the SD card. I just like had it in my head. That's the way I wanted to do it at the time. I don't know. I think that they're close to equal, I guess. I mean, if you have like the SD card builder for like Raspberry Pi, you can it just like builds everything right. You know, you pick what you want to use. Like I use like the Laka or whatever. Laka kind of looks like a PS3 interface. And I mean, it just like builds it right on there.
Used to. Yeah, I think you're right. I think they're about equal. I mean, they both have their own quirks. I think though that once it's set up, I think MiSTer is way easier to manage. in terms
Yeah.
of messing around with things and
Well,
like
especially
if you want
since-
to customize it.
Yeah, I mean, just like having the core for the system as opposed to, certain games might not run perfectly on. I mean, I guess perfect games don't run perfectly on both, anyways. But I mean, it just seems like eventually it will be easier on here.
I think so too. Yeah.
And there's probably just like less individual settings to have to fiddle with and stuff, on a per console basis.
Right.
I would imagine anyway.
Yeah, I love the and the other thing is like Raspberry Pi is really centered around those SD card images, like you're saying, and those are great for like a turnkey solution.
Yeah.
But it's also really limiting in terms. MiSTer, you can pre-configure everything on your computer the way you want it, and then just copy it to the SD card and go. And you could do that with Raspberry Pi to some degree, but I mean, you have to mount weird file systems with Raspberry Pi a lot of the time.
Right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, MiSTer to me at least, maybe as a Windows user, it's easier.
But I mean, just in general, I think that it's better. We got another donation there.
Oh, from Bubba D Matt, $2. Would FPGA powered arcade cabinets be a thing soon?
I mean,
Yes, there already are some actually. So there are these FPGA arcade emulators that have been using basically the MiSTer cores, Nibbler, Scramble, all those, and those are like it's like $600 for that. It's crazy expensive. It has a JAMA edge, and you plug it in to your cab, and it has it has like 6 or 7 games on it. And actually, I always forget his name. The guy who came up with the Pi to JAMA, so the hat that converts your Raspberry Pi into just a JAMA interface that you can shove into a cab.
Mm-hmm.
He was looking into MiSTer. He was interested in it, and that really got me excited. That'll be really easy, actually, especially once Ash's LL Cool Joy is up and integrated into the cores. Then it's just a matter of someone basically making a breakout to get it into a JAMA cab. Just plug and play and be ready to go.
Before I even start.
Say what?
So I used all my bombs right at the start. I'm just waiting for all the.
I always do that too because of the buttons.
Yeah.
Remind me what controller you're using, Corey?
I'm just using the 8-bit DOE SNES controller.
Oh, okay. Through USB connection?
No, I'm using. Yeah, I had to connect a retro receiver to it using the USB.
Okay.
So you discovered something that a lot of people don't realize, actually, is that if you have a retro receiver, most people don't realize that micro SD or micro USB port on it that's for updating the firmware.
Oh, yeah.
If you connect a cable, it actually turns it like for your computer. You can plug it into your computer and use it.
PS3 will work.
And the
too.
same for MiSTer.
It's a regular Bluetooth.
Yeah, I didn't realize that until just a few weeks ago. That's pretty cool. This whole time I've been using it with my PC, my 8-bit DOE's wired, and I didn't really need to be.
I was waiting to see if
It
there's
looks
any.
a little silly, but it does work.
Yeah. And it comes with that little tiny USB cable.
It makes sense, though. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it is a surprising feature.
So Lon Seldman was saying that the latest firmware updates for the 8-bit DOE controllers and receivers really brings the lag down significantly.
Really?
I just updated mine the other day.
How long has that update been out?
Try I updated a lot of my stuff for them a little while ago, and there was one for the NES retro receiver that speeds up connecting to it.
Oh, okay. My stuff is kind of been a pain for connecting lately, so I probably should update them all.
Yeah, I mean it makes a difference, but
I forget when the last time I did an update. I think it was like maybe not too long after they added Switch support.
Yeah, so it might be after that.
Yeah.
Lon really gushes over the 8-bit DOE arcade stick, which I bought on his recommendation.
Oh, really?
And he had done some tests, and it has a really decent latency. And it was the best of 8-bit DOS stuff at that time. And now this update, he was saying, brings all of the controllers up to that same level in terms of lag. So that's pretty cool.
Well, I'm curious.
There is a little trouble with diagonals on some things.
To try. Oh, it definitely does. I mean, I never thought it was that bad until recently when I was playing. I was playing Castlevania 3, and for some reason I was using like the Super Nintendo one, and I was walking forward, and I attacked, and I started throwing knives, and I was just like holding forward. And I was like, oh,
yeah, that is. I want to do a video of. A lot of people have been showing how you do tape to get rid of that
like those
problem.
little circle things. I mean, like,
yeah,
I've seen ones that they're like little circle for binders for if they rip.
Oh,
I think that's what they were using.
Does that just fit on there?
Yeah, it's like a perfect size. The thing is, I would love to do it on the. I love the Pro, the SM30 Pro controller, and I guess that one I haven't really noticed that one having issues. But that one's a little bit harder to take apart, for sure. So,
I got some Teflon tape, not like plumber's Teflon tape, but they make like actual. It's like strips of Teflon, and I heard that that's a really good way to do this mod, and I wanted to do a video about that eventually on 8-bit DOS to fix the diagonal issue.
Is the diagonal issue just because of the pads on the sensors on the board?
Yeah.
It's not because of the D-pad itself.
No, it's like it's making contact where it shouldn't be making contact, the carbon pads. And so you just put some tape over there to cover up where they shouldn't be touching, I think, is how it works.
I'm curious if they fixed it.
Could you take pads out of like a real Super Nintendo controller? And would it fit? Would it work?
No, it's not that. It's like the actual pads, I think, on the board itself.
Yeah, that's where you put the tape, is to cover it up on the board.
I'm curious if it's been fixed on like the new colored ones. You know, the ones that are modeled after the Game Boy Pocket.
Oh yeah.
Those look cool.
I gotta try those.
I would guess. I mean, 8-bit DOS. The one thing people have complaints about them, but man, they do a really good job updating their stuff.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully
it wouldn't surprise me if they did that.
If they fix it up. Yeah, I'm very curious. It's just it's overly sensitive, I guess, is the problem. But I think when I started realizing I was having that issue with Castlevania, that's when I was like, well, I decided to go back and clean, like really thoroughly clean some of my old like wired controllers for like real play instead of the, I kind of use the wireless ones because it's very easy to, we do a lot of off PVM shots and set that up and, and I can be far away and not have to worry about, digging out a controller to do it or anything like that. So
you're manhandling Truxton here.
No, I'm not.
That must be,
I'm not doing very good.
It's a tough game.
It is. The levels are really long, and it's a very good game.
This is a game where if we can get rid of those 2 frames of latency in HDMI, it will really make a big difference.
Yeah.
I had done a video on the RetroArch run-ahead mode, which lets you get rid of
right.
1 or 2 frames. And I noticed that is, I mean, it's weird because you think you can't notice like 2 frames of lag. You think like, oh, how can a human do that? And maybe you don't, but when you remove it, man, it opens up shooters especially and puzzle games.
Does it also remove inherent latency to the system itself though?
What it does is, so it kind of gets rid of the built-in 1 or 2 or up to 5 frames of lag that's programmed into games. So it's in the original hardware. And it doesn't get rid of all the lag because, of course, you're still getting it from your controller, the USB conversion, HDMI output. But it's almost like you're getting back those frames at least. So you're getting, you're still adding on maybe 2 frames of lag and all the other stuff, but you've freed up the 2 that are built into the game.
I mean, 2 is a lot better than 4. Or
yeah. and it makes a game like Mortal Kombat 2 on the Super Nintendo. That was the game I wanted to use as the test bed for it, because that game has 5 frames of lag built in. So all those arguments like back in the school days of Super Nintendo versus Genesis Mortal Kombat, there is a big difference. The Genesis has like 1 or 2 frames built in. The Super Nintendo has 5, and for a fighting game, that's crazy.
That almost doesn't surprise me. I mean, I'm not a big fighting game guy.
Well,
so
with the first one, it wasn't like that with the second one, though, was it?
Yeah, I think it was Mortal Kombat 1 that I tested, that I put head to head.
Because I feel like Mortal Kombat 1 in the arcade felt really laggy anyways.
It did, yeah. It feels slow compared to when you get to Mortal Kombat 2. I've got those arcade boards. And that'll be the same thing with MiSTer, where we're still getting some... I mean, it has really low USB latency for controllers, but it still does have some. And
I think it's impossible to fully get rid of it, though.
Yeah,
because it's just like so many layers built into it.
No matter what, there will always be, when you're going through USB, that translation going on.
Yeah.
And you can get it down to the best possible.
And that's another reason why the Cool Joy will be good, though.
Yeah. The LL Cool J combined with the new scaler, this thing is gonna like really be a powerhouse, and it will feel night and day at that point. Especially for a game like Truxton, a really tough shooter, where, you know, dodging bullets, like, is that your fault or is it the frames of lag? It's hard to say. I would guess you get rid of those 2 frames of lag and you won't be dying. That was my experience, at least when I got Run Ahead working on the computer.
So what's your...
I love that I can use the swap joystick so I could press start on the second controller and enable invincibility. That's the it's like one of the few codes that I remember. And it kind of goes against my rule of I hate cheat codes where you gotta do it on the second controller. But if you just have to hit one button, I'm okay with that.
What's your hotkey for getting into the MiSTer menu?
It's just select.
Menu. Just select.
Yeah.
For now, anyway.
Yeah. I don't know if you can really... I don't think you can have like a button combo that actually does it.
I am not a very big fan of this version of Targeter.
Well,
it's on Genesis here.
Yeah. I really like Cybernator, but this game, like this Genesis
it
version,
broke you, didn't it? It was like so difficult. It's such a difficult game.
Very difficult. Like, yeah, Drum and I were, I think, alternating.
Yeah, you can make it past like the second level or third level or something like that. Or
yeah, maybe. We did not get very far. But I'll tell you what, when the PS4 remake came out, it's this game, but with more Cybernator-like mechanics. And
right. Oh, yeah.
I loved it.
I mean, I like this one just because I have a soft spot. It was famous, like, in like magazines for being, like, for being difficult. And I know one person that was able to beat it for real. And it
legit.
Was legit, and it was it was a medal of like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
Is it hard? It looks really floaty. Is that what makes it hard? Or
No, it's just it gets really intense. I mean,
there's just so much going on, and like
exactly.
There's things like that ship he was chasing. Like, you gotta like blow up that ship before it gets to like a certain point, but it's just really difficult. Like the PS4 remake, kind of brings the controls more into Cybernator, where your
shield
mech has this real like heft and weight to it. And it just I guess kind of redesigns a lot of it to be a little friendlier. I think there is like an original mode that is,
it's like this.
Yeah, and it sticks a lot closer to the original difficulty. But I mean, it's still a challenging game, but I feel like that weight that the mech has, kind of makes these games feel a little more unique, and this game doesn't really have that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the first one.
Yeah.
2 has that weight.
So that's the Saturn game, right?
Yeah.
But that came after Cybernator on the SNES.
Yes. Remember, like, the bloody guy there in the corner. Like, that shocked me back in the day. It's like, oh my gosh, he's all messed up.
We've been hit. Ah.
He says that with such passion.
I think it's also really hard to tell, like what's your enemy, what's your friend.
Yeah.
And like which enemies you should prioritize.
Yeah, I mean, you really got to abuse
it's just
the
kind of
recharge.
a difficult game to parse, in my opinion.
Yeah. Not when you have invincibility, though.
I guess not.
There's one level, I don't know, I think it's like the level after next, where you go down into the planet through the atmosphere, and I thought it was just the coolest thing.
It is pretty neat.
And even this, you have this whole level where you're in zero gravity flying around.
It's a cool looking game to watch you play.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
The little sprites have a lot of personality for being so little, like, micro machine sized.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the PS4 remake is not really a pretty game.
It's not.
It's got weird sprite work, but the mechanics are very good.
Yes. I mean, the PS4 version is well worth the $20 that it goes for these days.
Is this still available? We were like really scared for a while that it was like going to become rare. It was a GameStop exclusive at first, wasn't it?
No, I don't think it was.
Oh, we got Castlevania games, $5. The only show better than My Life in Gaming than the My Life in Game show is MLiG with Smokemonster.
Thanks for coming. That's awesome. Some celebrities in the chat. Castlevania.
Thank you.
I'm really glad to be here. I'm glad you're doing this for MiSTer, because this is what it needs, is the attention. Somebody out there is in school. Lots of people are doing stuff with FPGAs nowadays, and they use it to like train students, projects and things. So getting the awareness out about MiSTer will bring in more developers, and I really think there will be a snowball effect eventually with MiSTer.
So I mean, where can people get the stuff that they need to get now? I mean, if Tinkerplunk it doesn't have the boards currently, where can people
basically what you want is on my YouTube channel, people can watch. The easiest way to get going with MiSTer is just to buy a D10 Nano, and you can play a bunch of the cores, including super graphics, with no add-ons at all, with just a D10 Nano. Most people don't realize that. And then what you want to prioritize in terms of boards is the SD RAM. And if I tweeted the other day, someone on Twitter, Porkchop Express, is making boards. Right now, there's a board shortage because of all the attention, and because there's like a cottage industry of everybody out there who can make boards is making them at full speed right now, and they're sold out for like 6 weeks into the future. Except Porkchop Express is doing them, and DB Electronics hopefully will have a factory making them, and that will finally crack it open to where he'll have on his store or whatever, where you can buy it pre-made, coming from a factory in China, where we don't have to wait for these really generous people to spend an hour doing really heavy-duty soldering, especially for every single board.
Yeah,
because it'll just never be a mass product if that's the way it goes forward until somebody gets a factory set up.
Is there like a central repository of information on this, like written information, not just video?
Yeah, there's the MiSTer Wiki on GitHub, the place for all information on the boards.
That's how I figured out how to do the
basically all the
MSX.
details.
And does it say like where you can buy them and stuff like that?
Yeah, there's a link to a thread at the Atari forums that's for sellers, and that's where basically everybody who makes boards is there. But that's not really, to me, a viable option if we're talking about getting it into the masses. Like, I'm like with Corey, where we need it in stores where you can use a credit card or PayPal and buy it, you know, like you'd buy something off Amazon or whatever, instead of having to register on a forum and contact people
Right.
halfway across the
Because
world.
I mean that
Did you hear
gets
that,
rid of, like,
Castlevania? You need to
Yeah.
sell them.
Stock it up.
I mean that gets
MiSTer
rid
is
of the
so hot too. The first person to the finish line when it comes to factory producing them wins, really, because hundreds of boards can sell in 24 hours. It's crazy. Every time I tweet a new source, the source goes down because they get backlogged. That's just the way it's been. Somebody's like, "Oh, I'm going to make 10 boards," sold out. The minute that they open their mouth, they're sold out. Like, we need it.
Yeah,
we need someone to get like 1,000 SD RAMs.
Like the D10, I got mine from DigiKey. Yes, I bought it from.
Yeah, we even, like, when I showed, so there was a deal. DigiKey is my favorite place to buy it right now. The D10 Nano we were even selling out, which is funny because it's, you know, an actual product. I posted a video when it was on sale for 15% off at arrow.com, and that lasted 2 days until they sold out their full inventory, which was at least 86 units, somebody said, maybe more than that. And we keep selling out Amazon, but they putting them back in stock within a few hours every time it goes down. So, yeah, DigiKey, if you're in Europe, MouSer is also a really good place to get it. The DigiKey, Amazon, and MouSer, it's $130 with free shipping, basically. And if it ever comes back at arrow.com, it's $130, but you get free overnight shipping from them. So you could have it by like lunch the next day, which is cool.
Well, hey, we got Circusy?
Circusy?
I don't know. $5. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We've kind of had an interesting week on the channel, I think. Like the Castlevania episode did like a lot better than we ever thought it was going to.
Yeah,
that exploded right away.
It's like
it's
over 80,000 views now. Yeah, it's retained high views, you know, in the week following release, like in a way the very few videos we do.
Yes. It's been very consistent.
Managed. It's been excellent to see the positive response.
And I don't know what
really has.
What happened. I mean, I don't know if YouTube is like pushing like the channel out more to people just in general, because yeah, because
cracked the algorithm.
Yeah,
I mean the 4K the 4K episode's been doing very well. We theorize because it's like, you know, Black Friday's coming and it'll be people will be getting 4K TVs and stuff.
Yeah, you guys really, more than any other channels, you really have your finger on the pulse for not just classic gaming, but for gaming in general. I'm always, every time you put something out, it's like, yep, this. I mean, it's like you really know what to do, and I think the Castlevania game did it, and the 4K episode too, like you're saying.
Yeah, I mean that one I wasn't as appreciated as I had hoped.
The amount of work that you put into it. But now,
I mean, I was that video was like, aside. I mean, granted, I was on the road for, you know, about a month total in that span of time, but I was like working out for like 3 months. Like,
I could see that. Yeah, that was a really
like if you didn't count like the amount of time I was out of town, like maybe 2 months, but it was like about 3 real months, and of just like work on that video was insane. And so, I mean, it did okay, but I thought it was going to do more. But now it feels like it's finally like breaking through to the audience.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's done very well these last couple of weeks. You know, more so than it has. You know, it's gotten about third of the views of his total views in the last couple weeks, I think.
I guess that might be true.
But like in addition,
Red Wolfie says, I really beefed up my retro output with your wizard-like knowledge. I wouldn't say we have wizard-like knowledge, but I mean that
we know people that have wizard-like knowledge.
That is very true. We do. Such as the person with the pink and blue background in our chat in our Discord chat right now. But I mean, it's I feel like what makes our videos work for people is the fact that we aren't wizards.
Yeah.
It's like we're able to parse the information just well enough that we can like speak on a relatable level, because it's like, oh, I understand it now. I can explain this in a way that I can understand so that other people can understand, because I'm really explaining it in my own dumb terms.
Oh, you guys are humble. I consider you guys wizards compared to me. Your knowledge of the video stuff especially is impeccable.
Well,
Well, thank you.
That is though. So
we just look at it up close, I guess.
I study archaeology, and that's one of the things they teach you early on, is that you have this idea that archaeologists memorize like 10 billion different artifacts, and like everything in the history of the world. People ask me all these crazy questions. That's not actually, most archaeologists just know the right book to go to, honestly. Like if you threw me some buttons from a dig, I wouldn't be able to just look at them and tell you what they were, but I could pull that book out and date them, It's that kind of thing.
And it's a similar thing with just like,
I guess it comes down to it comes down to knowing when to say that you don't know, and you just and you figure you figure it out, and you know how to figure it out versus
a willingness and understanding of how to figure it out.
Yes,
I mean it's the same thing with we
got another $2.
Oh, another two from Bubba D Matt. Off topic. Most funniest games y'all ever played? Oh, that's a good question. I feel on the spot all of a sudden. I feel like I could think of so many things if you didn't just ask me. Gosh.
Proteus games have a good sense of humor.
Oh, they have a great sense of humor.
On purpose.
Yeah, what would be the funniest game? I mean, I've always really appreciated the humor in like the Paper Mario games and stuff like that. I feel like I could come up with.
Is it weird that I think that one of the funniest games I've ever played, and continues to be one of the funniest games I've ever played, is a game I just played earlier in this stream, which is Road Rash. Definitely a funny game, especially the 32-bit versions, like the 3DO and the 3DO version, the PS1 and Saturn version. The one with has a great soundtrack, but also amazing sense of humor.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of the funniest games are sometimes games that, they aren't really billed as comedy games necessarily, but they've just got very sharp writing that is just funny oftentimes, not necessarily out of like being a comedy or anything, but it's just very enjoyable writing that makes you smile,
I see a lot of mentions of Undertale. I have not played Undertale. I have it, but I haven't played it.
Cuphead has a good sense of humor in a not crazy comedy, but wacky time, period comedy.
Mm-hmm. I really like the Monkey Island games. I think the Monkey Island games are very funny.
Yeah, Sierra games have a lot of humor in them that's well timed.
Strider, like I love this version of Strider, and the thing that gets me about it is it's coming up here in just a second. I think about how I was so excited to get it, and I would spend so much time just like looking at like one or two screenshots of the game, and I just like would analyze every instance of that screenshots when I was looking at this robot gorilla. Just like blew me away, and I remember staring at screenshots of this thing.
How could this be?
Yeah, well, not just that.
How
but
can this
like,
robot gorilla exist?
But like, how could I like look
Play
at
this at home.
that single picture for so long and not get sick of looking at that picture?
I mean, I totally relate. I mean,
It's impressive.
I mean, I remember, just like things I was excited about. I remember like I could just look at like pictures and like I remember like when I was about to get my first dog. Like I remember just like staring at like dog pictures and books like all day, like when I was 8 years old, So I mean I can relate.
Another thing that got me about this game is when I run down this slope here. I gotta wait for Solo to come out here.
We got another $5 from Refugio Villegas III. Hopefully I said that passively well. Are you playing? Have you already done a video on RetroPie emulation on our channel? We have not. Corey has a RetroPie. I mean, it might be interesting to maybe just analyze what you can do with like one particular popular type of installation for RetroPie or something.
I mean, it remains to be seen. It's
not our area of expertise, and it's something we're always reluctant to touch too much because
every time we do talk about emulation, we're always told that like, oh, you didn't choose. Why don't you talk about Mednafen or something like this? Always something that we didn't.
I mean,
have.
we are not emulation experts.
It's a rabbit hole, I'm sure.
Our pulse is not on that scene. It's not because we dislike or don't respect emulation. Because I mean, I think the work that's being done in emulation is tremendously important in terms of accessibility and keeping old games like in the public consciousness. It's tremendously important, and people are doing incredible work reverse engineering systems and stuff like that. But it's not really what we gravitate to for our own personal interest. So it's something that we just don't feel qualified to really talk about because we just don't have a very good understanding of the breadth and depth of that scene.
Yeah.
It's really hard. Like a lot of people, I'm sure, as soon as you mention, probably like, oh, you should do the definitive video on MiSTer. Or a lot of people are saying to me, and I agree, I mean, it would be great. I would love to see a video by you or like Digital Foundry. But the catch is, MiSTer changes so fast. Like,
Right.
I would worry like if there was a great like definitive My Life in Gaming, Digital Foundry video on MiSTer. Like next month, the new scaler comes out, and then your
It doesn't matter.
your latency calculations are all wrong.
Right.
Yeah,
and then it's there permanently.
Yeah, way too early for us to do a video the way that we do videos. I mean, yes, things are going to become out of date, but we, put so much into each video that we try to make it relatively evergreen. There might be changes. I mean, there's definitely a lot of things that are very out of date. Like, for example, the FrameMeister Alternatives video, we launched that like right when the OSSC was launching. And the OSSC information in that is extremely out of date.
Yeah.
I kind of used the 4K TV episode as a way to update our information on the OSSC. Our GameCube video is out of date, and we're working on getting that sort of fixed.
Oh, cool.
Which is our next video.
It is.
Hopefully Saturday.
Nice.
As the
that will be exciting to me.
It just, it's an update on the. A lot of people are asking about
GC.
the HDMI, GC video stuff.
Carby and stuff.
That will be a popular one.
I think so, yeah. Oh, welcome, new member. Welcome, Carson.
Speaking of.
Yeah, what does member mean exactly? Welcome and thank you.
The member is basically like the built-in version of Patreon.
Oh, okay. I knew that existed, but I didn't know what it was called. I know we've got a few already.
Yeah, we have
right?
I think he might be the 10th. I think he was a member before.
Well, thank you very much, Carson.
If you're interested in Patreon or a membership, we've been doing these weekly video logs. There are between 20 minutes to half an hour every single week, along with like other stuff. We have over 40 exclusive videos now on there.
You guys are really good. So I've said this before. Like, I feel like you guys and Bob are really good values for Patreon because you get a lot. Like, for your $1 a month, you guys put out a ton of Patreon exclusive stuff.
Well, we were slow for a while.
It's really only been more recent that we've been like really sticking to it, and we've kind of come up with what I think is like a sustainable format for that, where it's just like, each of us just like once or twice a week, whenever like we just like feel like it, we just like shoot like very simple off the cuff. They're very much more like kind of like get to know us videos or things that we just like, oh, hey, we got this cool thing in the mail. Let's look at that real quick. Yeah. Or something like that.
Or looking at like
we are not off the cuff people, really.
But it's a way for us to practice and maybe
it's a way for us to practice it. But I've been surprised by the feedback people have given us on the videos and in our Patreon Discord chat. People have been like, hey, it's I really like the vibe of these videos. They're really very chill and fun to listen to. So it's been good to see a good reception. We got another member from Drew Selesky.
Oh,
thank you
and welcome. I love this part. This is the escape as the ship blows up behind me. Did it.
And
but
yeah,
get, so what was...
You follow My Life in Gaming on Patreon, and you get access to the Discord too.
Yeah,
which is big. There's lots of cool people in there.
It's a very shockingly good Discord. Like once we started that, like I expected it to be dead within a week, and it's a great chat. Like
there's like over 300 people, I think, in there.
Yeah, but it doesn't move too fast.
Right.
Like it's a good pace.
Yeah, it's not like the chat comments here where it flies by all day long. You can take part in the conversation and whatnot.
What was the... So, Troy, you shot the N64 thing this week. I was thinking about doing my video log on the fanzines that I wrote when I was a little kid.
Oh.
This week, I think.
Well, I was just inspired by your thing where you were talking just like you're just looking at like a bunch of Genesis games and talking about the box art and stuff. And like immediately after watching that in this past weeks, I immediately felt like talking about a bunch of games myself. So I was just like, I'm going to talk about some N64 games because I feel like. I think the next week what I might do is I got the Super Mario Encyclopedia. It came like a few weeks ago, but it had some damage from shipping on it, so I finally got around to asking Amazon for a replacement and sending the old one back, and they did. So I'm thinking about opening that and just sort of taking a first peek at that. And that'd be a good thing to do with like any sort of like art book or something. You could just like take a look for Patreon.
Oh yeah.
Do we have the Discord integrated for the YouTube member thing?
No, I gotta post it. I'm not sure. I don't think there's any kind of integration for it. I got to figure out a way to send that to people.
Yeah, because I definitely want to be able to invite people to that.
Right. What should I play next? I'll do one more for a little bit since we're winding down here.
Oh wow! I didn't realize how much overtime
I
we
didn't
were.
That's what you get for having me on. I tend to stream. I can go on for a while streaming for whatever reason. I don't know. Sometimes I'll look down like, oh man, I just streamed for like 6 hours without even realizing it. I try not to do that too much, but.
Oh, I use my ninja magic. This level is called Burning Downtown. I wonder if it's inspired at all by Rondo of Blood.
Oh,
which is, you know, I was
Dinner of Flames.
The level being called Dinner of Flames is one of my favorite like names for a level.
What does it even mean?
I don't know. Dinner of Flames. I mean,
like those buildings in the background are like doing some serious swaying. I mean, that's
they're really on fire.
Yeah.
There is something bad going on.
I mean, is not that amazing as the Super Nintendo Dracula X is. That fire effect in the first level is pretty awesome.
I can't believe why am I'm supposed to use a dog there? I don't know why I'm having such a tough time.
I've never really known what to think about this game.
It's just like
it's like the older Shinobi.
It's like the first one. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good game.
Is it expensive?
I don't think so.
Probably get it if I saw it.
So speaking of N64,
he'd start a Chinese restaurant in New York City called Dinner of Flames.
Oh yeah, that sounds exciting. Could do all sorts of like flambe soirees there, like the stuff on food at the table. So I was thinking the other day of Blast Corps on the N64. You like that game?
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
I grew up with that game. One of the few games I own on my N64. I love it, and it doesn't get much attention.
The thing that, I actually kind of mentioned it I mentioned it offhand in the Perfect Dark episode, because I was sort of saying how like Rare, I feel Rare has this tendency to not always make like genre games by the books. They just like kind of make up their own way to make it work, and it doesn't necessarily play like a similar game from another developer. But I always think of Blast Corps, and I think I have absolutely no idea like what genre to call that game.
Yeah.
Like no idea. Like there is no
Vehicular
game.
destruction, but like on paths.
Yeah.
It's its own genre. Yeah, for sure.
It's kind of a puzzle game. It's kind of an action game. I just don't really know what it is, and there is no game remotely similar to Blast Corps that I can think of. I mean, it's an entirely unique game.
Yeah,
it's very, very good. That was actually like that game kind of came out in a phase where I was, I guess, kind of expanding my gaming horizons. Like when I was younger, I used to like stick to very sort of narrow sort of genres and narrow series within those genres. I was really big into platformers mostly, you know. So I was like playing a lot of like Mario and Donkey Kong Country and Kirby games and stuff like that. But like I was very reluctant to try a lot of variety of things. And like when the N64 came out, I mean, I was still like a Nintendo only kid at the time. And like, you know, first party releases were pretty thin. And I was, you know, those kinds of very limited gaming habits were sustainable because I got into the Super Nintendo very late and I didn't have a ton of NES games. But then like I got an N64 very early and it's like, well, I need more games to play. And I played like lots more variety of games at friends' houses and stuff. But Blast Corps kind of came out at that time where I'm like, okay, I need to start like liking more games. And so that was like one of, it might have been the first N64 game that I bought that like wasn't Mario. Which I think, I mean, it probably was my third N64 game, come to think of it, because I mean, obviously I have Mario 64, but then, you know, I got Mario Kart, and it's like, now I have no idea what's next. So I need to have more diverse gaming tastes.
Yeah, I was basically the exact same way. Like, I only got Nintendo systems because, like, I had to share the console as a Christmas present with my sister, and it was, you know, my parents, I think, who picked it out for us as young men. So I had Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and then I had gotten those when they were both like a year old at least. Maybe Nintendo NES might have been a couple years old when I got it. Mm-hmm. And then I got the same thing. It was like I got the N64 relatively close to when it launched. And like PlayStation 1 wasn't really an option for me. Mm-hmm. So I had a small collection of N64. Sega consoles were always like exotic to me. I've always desired them, and it's probably why I'm so hardcore now, like into Genesis, like making up for lost time and Sega CD and that kind of stuff.
I could definitely relate. I can definitely relate. I've sort of found like the systems that I didn't have as a kid. I definitely go through a phase when I finally do get into them where it's like it's the system I'm enjoying the most for a while. You know, I definitely did that with Genesis. Lately, that's kind of been PC Engine for me. Like I, you know, finally got PC Engine like a year and a half ago or so. You know, that system has been a ton of fun for me. We got another Bubba D Matt, $2. Most raunchy retro games.
Boogerman.
There's so many. Hentai columns. Sextress. Where does it end? I mean, that is a dark path to go down. Those are hacks. Okay.
I mean, you know, obviously Conker's Bad Fur Day would be kind of one of the more basic answers that comes to mind. That's almost too obvious.
What's the Genesis shooter? Oh man, there's a Genesis shooter that's very risque. I forget the name of it.
Well, there's the Stormlord that, you know, had the naked fairies in it. They had to clothe them for the U.S. release. I have that game. I got it just
Steam
because.
Speaking of, Steam Hearts got pretty heavily edited, I think, for the Saturn when it came to the U.S.
Steam Hearts. Nah, I'm not familiar with that one.
Oh,
I think I might have that actually on my Saturn.
Oh, I'm trying to find this game, but I'm sure somebody's probably already mentioned in the comments if I just look.
Any plans on doing an original Xbox? How to get the best picture quality? Of course.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're gonna
don't know for sure when. No promises on when. I mean, I think we're going to have multiple RGB 200s in 2019.
Yes.
Right now, I'm kind of on the fence of whether my big plan, at first for December, was to work on the Wii RGB episode and get that out before the end of the year. Now I'm kind of wavering on that because I think there might be some more important things that people will be equally or more interested in seeing. So that might end up being more like January or February. It's still possible it could be this year, but we will see.
Right.
But Xbox, I'm not sure where in the schedule it will fall. I mean, to be entirely honest, like I have not spent a lot of time thinking about the more exotic ways of hooking up an Xbox. You know?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of different.
I know there's the VGA method, but I got the Microsoft component box really early on, and that's just all I've ever known really for my Xbox.
Yeah,
But there's the official like just regular component cables, and those things are so like they're like the thickest cables I have.
Yeah, and they're getting pretty pricey.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the Xbox 360 SCART cable?
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's like apparently Microsoft just does glorious cables. Their SCART cable for the 360, if you can find the first party one, it's a work of beauty. It's so thick and chunky. And I opened mine up to look inside of it, thinking that I needed to change something, and I didn't actually, but to get it to work with my PVM. It's magnificent. Fully shielded at both ends.
Wow.
It's good stuff. Shielded and grounded, I mean. I had bought my first 360 SCART cable. I bought was a knockoff, and it just had a cable inside of it. It was the worst picture I ever saw for the Xbox, and I dissected the cable, and it has one composite lead inside. I was like, "Are you serious?" I got my money back for that.
Yeah, there's some bad Xbox cables out there for sure. Actually, a few weeks ago, did something that I had never done before, which was I tried original Xbox backwards compatibility on Xbox 360. I played some Halo. My Halo 1, well, Halo experience in general is little to none. So I can't say for sure how well it plays compared to the original hardware, but it felt like it was playing pretty good. So I was surprised. I know that Xbox backwards compatibility on 360 is relatively limited in terms of the launch.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Also, man, that static screen looks kind of cool, but it also wreaks total havoc on the compression. It's kind of beautiful, really.
I saw it was the importer mentioned that before we do an Xbox, there's got to be Dreamcast and PC Engine, and that's correct. Those ones will happen first. Probably.
Yeah, I feel fairly confident those will come first, especially once. I mean, I feel like there's two big things that we're kind of waiting to happen for Dreamcast, and that's one for the Dreamcast mod by Citrus 3000 PSI to be ready to go, or more widely released.
Mm-hmm.
And the other is, I believe Retrobit is, releasing an official Sega VGA box, supposedly.
Oh yeah, with all their, I think they had their own VGA box for a long time, but now they're doing all those like official
I don't know if
ones.
the hardware will truly be what was in the original VGA box, but I actually just switched on my Dreamcast from, I think my Toro is just like not working at all anymore. I don't know if it's a cable issue or the connector on the board. I'm not sure, but it's just not working at all now. And I switched to this cheap generic. You see them all over eBay and Amazon. It didn't even have a brand name. This just straight up VGA cable.
Mm-hmm.
It's no box. And At first, I didn't think it worked on the OSSC. I think I maybe didn't have quite a good connection. I was actually talking to Carcinogen about it the other week. I mean, I think it looks fine. I mean, I haven't really put it under scrutiny, but I think it looks fine. I mean, as far as I understand, the only real reason for the VGA box is for like games that don't support 480p, right? I mean, which in the US, I don't think
I've never cracked
any.
one open.
Well, Voltar in the chat is saying.
I've still got.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I have the original Hanzo cables with that thing. Yeah, Voltar has my interest right now.
Yeah, it says HG Retrovision is gonna drop a Dreamcast component bomb soon.
Boom.
There it is. You heard it here first.
I mean, that's what I'm excited about. Like, I'm kind of tired of chasing the whole VGA box thing on Dreamcast because
VGAs are just so funky to deal with it compared to the other signals that we mess with.
I mean, it is nice if there's only one VGA signal that I use, and that's Dreamcast, and I can just plug it straight into the OSSC. So for now, it seems like that VGA is working pretty good. I swapped it. I was using it on my regular Dreamcast at first. Then I swapped it into my GDMU one, and the connection wasn't very good at first. But once I got it going, it was going good, and I thought it looked good. So I mean, it does look nice, but it can be a pain. I mean, it is definitely a little tempting to consider making something like the Dreamcast HDMI mod, like, when that's ready.
Yeah, definitely.
Make that a main Dreamcast, maybe.
It's gonna find a game.
I've got a Franken Dreamcast that I sort of is what I throw all of my. I have lots of Dreamcasts, way too many probably, but then I have my one main one is the one that I like to do Frankenstein sort of stuff too, like that HDMI model go in there. Built my own Pico PSU power supply and recapped it. Did a whole bunch of crazy stuff. I do the Dreamcast though. It's hard. It's relatively easy for people like us, but like when my friends who aren't so crazy ask me about Dreamcasts lately, I've been pointing them towards those cheap HDMI cables, even though I know it's so wrong. It's just like they don't have this crazy.
Oh, the pound
level.
cables?
I mean, they just pound and now.
So many people want us to do a video on that stuff, and I mean, we definitely do it. We haven't been in contact with them, and we I guess that's partly our fault too. We haven't reached out to them either. But I mean, I think it's because we have like a lot of other stuff going on, anyways.
I don't even know how many cables there are to look at this point. I mean,
there's really few, I think. Pound and Hyperkin, I think, are the two.
Well, Pound, I think, is made up of like former Hyperkin people.
Okay.
But I'm not. I mean, it's just we'd like to do a video on it, but I mean, we haven't reached out because we don't have enough time anyways to do it.
yeah. I mean,
and with like how well the Castlevania video's done, suddenly doing game episodes like that are suddenly much more viable than they have been in the past as well.
So. Yeah, I think we're going to hit a pretty good stride in 2019 for sure.
We're feeling good. We're feeling good.
Yeah, you're kind of working on editing the Secret Japan project.
Yeah, and hopefully we can. I mean,
but you were saying you thought you might could even get done like by Thanksgiving or close to done.
That's my goal is to be close to done.
That would be incredible. That sounds very optimistic, but that would be incredible.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
I think you could get it fairly close, actually.
Yeah, I think so too. But I mean, like I'm working on that like during the day, and in the evenings and weekends, like I'm working on other stuff. Like I was working. So we've been talking about this third-party controllers video that we were gonna like make a series for a long time, and we decided not to make it a series. We're just gonna put everything in the one video. And now it's gonna be like 20 controllers. one video, like like
That'll be cool.
2 to 3 minutes per controller, just kind of looking at them and talking about them for a minute. Probably be an hour.
I have some really favorite third-party controllers.
Oh yeah, I mean there's some good stuff. I mean there's some.
I've wanted to do a video just on the Newbie Tech Street Fighter Anniversary controller for the came out for the PS2, but it works on the PS1.
Mm-hmm.
Got one in a drawer over here because when I took it apart, my first one to clean it, I realized that it's a direct clone of the Saturn Model 2, except that it's kind of like beefier inside.
Interesting.
That's a real unknown little controller that could use some attention.
Yeah. The ASCII pad will be for the Super NES will be in the episode. I'll show you what I'm excited to show. Hang on, let me grab it.
I know what you're excited about.
I like my favorite Super Nintendo controller. I love the Super Nintendo controllers, but there's a high frequency controller that's the same thing. It's a Sega Saturn Model 2 put into a.
I'm excited to check this out after, knowing that it's terrible since 1992, even though I've never used it. I just assume that it's terrible. And that is the Turbo Touch 360. I managed to get this completely sealed version of the Turbo Touch 360, so I will unseal that in the episode from the Turbo Touch 360 from Triax Controls. So
it looks ahead of its time.
Yes,
put it that way.
No more finger fatigue or blisters.
Part of a controller.
It was extensively consumer tested by game players, software developers, and game reviewers,
and marketing specialists, and bean counters.
It's a breakthrough product offering the benefit of higher scores and longer play without thumb fatigue. That dreaded thumb fatigue.
Thumb fatigue.
Yep. Well, so look for that. I'm working on that on my free time, I guess. So.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's terrible, but I mean, how many videos you get to see where they use a fresh Turbo Touch 360? I'm going to Turbo Touch it for the first time.
Turbo Touch it for the first time.
Oh, we got another $5 donation from Circe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here's my little Super Nintendo favorite, but a serious favorite.
Oh, what is that?
High frequency controllers. The secret's going to be out now, but Sega Saturn Model 2 is a clone for the Super Nintendo, and they made this for a bunch of systems. They're very good. It's a nice little. It's a really good D-pad.
Looks kind of thick.
It's chunky. Yeah, it's well made. Got speaking of that, here's the Street Fighter 2 Anniversary controller.
Oh yeah, I've seen that one. Oh, we got another
really nice controller.
Oh, we got another really Bubba D Matt. What games y'all played? Last one. Like, is it like what are the last games we have played?
Like the last.
I played Final Day Pawn last night. Last game I played.
I played. I made a good little bit of progress in Dragon Quest XI this weekend. But before that, I mean, if it's like the last game I beat Bomberman Hero on our lunch break stream on Friday.
Yeah. And those will be making a return this week. We're trying to make Twitch affiliate. We have like 4 more hours to go, I think.
Yeah, those are for our casual streams. Our event streams are here. This is where we're sticking for our regularly scheduled streams. But that's what we're just doing, just casual. It's I mean, not that this isn't laid back, but it's just like go in with no plan. We don't really like worry about whether we're talking about anything interesting. We just, it's just casual stream, after we eat lunch, for an hour or so. But I mean, it's certainly not going to be every day. Some weeks we may not even be able to do it. I don't know what's going to look like this week because
I think that we really
I'm going to be killing myself over the episode that we're hoping to release next week.
Yeah, that's the GameCube HDMI one. But yeah, I mean, we're really close to getting that, so I think we can eke it out this week at some point. Just like
maybe so.
Yeah, it's usually around like 12 to 12:30 to about 2. And any given day.
I tune into those whenever I can catch you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's
like if you're online when you tweet, it's fun to just jump in there and watch you both play 2 different games at the same time.
Yeah, you get 2 games for the price of one. You know, I was playing Bomberman on the big screen, and I was playing Adventure Island games on the little screen.
Your time zone must be relatively similar to ours. Is that right?
Well, it keeps getting weirder. I mean, because I'm on a different hemisphere. Like I go from 2 hours different to Eastern time. Now it's 3 hours different, and then when you guys change your clocks again, it'll be a 4-hour difference. So it goes from relatively easy to swing to like getting funky. And right now, the 3-hour one is really weird for me.
So you're behind though.
Let's see. We put our clocks forward, and that made us 3 hours different. And then when you guys put your clocks backwards for daylight savings, that bumps it to 4 hours, I think.
So what time is it right now?
So it's like 2:45 a.m. here.
Oh, wow.
Oh, geez.
I wasn't expecting it to really be forward like that.
Yeah, it's really only 2 hours different. I'm only about 2 hours east of you, but the hemisphere thing
messes it all up.
Makes it tricky because of the tilt of the Earth and all that.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I guess you're enjoying early spring or something right now.
Yep, it's gone into spring. Spring has sprung. My gardens are doing well, and it's going into really summer. I mean, it was 97 the other day. It got hot. So good time to be in Brazil. It's very nice down here.
But you're going to be back in the States here pretty soon, you said.
Yep, I'm moving back permanently in March.
Oh, wow.
Soon, I've got the tickets now.
You're moving back
moving to San Diego.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
But you are going to be back in Brazil after this.
Yeah, I'll be back and forth a couple trips to the US for family kind of stuff. And then my last trip is just a one-way back to the US, I guess.
Wow. So do you have a lot of your stuff that you're going to need to...
It's basically all in a storage unit. Everything I own for the most part. I brought the essentials here, Sega Saturn, Super NT, Dreamcast, tons of stuff actually.
Are you going to have to
I was going to name it all.
Are you going to have to ship that stuff? A lot of it? Or are you going to fly with
I'll carry it. I'll carry it in my checked luggage, piece by piece. Some of it can stay here. I mean, some of it, I have enough PlayStation 2s that I can leave one of those behind here. I could really leave a Saturn and a Dreamcast here. I don't really need them back in the US with me. But I brought my Nomad for Genesis, and I brought a Turbo Express that I use for PC Engine. Those are nice and portable. And all my handhelds are here. But a lot of goodies back in storage in the US that I'm just looking forward to getting back to. And my PVMs, I got 5 of those since I started watching you guys.
You can't say no to them if you
see them.
Yeah, if you see them, you can't say no. You got to find some place to find some use for them, I guess.
Yeah, can't let them go to waste.
I mean, I have not really looked, but if one of them fell in my lap, I wouldn't say no to it, even though my wife would be like, "Are you kidding me? She realizes that it's completely out of control." So
I mean, I don't know if I have acquired a CRT in almost a year. I might be getting better.
That's pretty good. Yeah. I mean, you reach that level where it's like, oh man, there's a start. You got to bring all those home, of course. Then you get to the PVM level, and things become a little more sparse. I had 2 basically fall in my lap, like Corey said, from a saved search on Craigslist that just yielded gold over like a 3-month period, and then it went dark again. That's where I got my 20-inch and my 19-inch PVMs, which I have approval to bring a single one PVM to San Diego because we're going to be in such a small place. So the PVM 2030 is what I'm going to take.
Oh, that's a pretty big one, though. I mean, that one just like has a big case to it. I mean, it's not even a case. It's just like it's weird. Like though it's weirdly shaped. I guess.
It looks good. I mean, sitting in a room, people are like, "What's going on with that?" I mean,
yeah,
it
is very eye catching for sure. But it's 12:40 or 11:45.
Yeah.
We're going a little bit later tonight. That's okay though. It was a good time. You were the first guest we've had on in a very long time, actually, and kind of doing it on our own.
Thanks for having me.
It's
been a lot of fun. I am impressed with how well MiSTer did tonight.
Yeah, I mean,
held in there. I thought we would have more little quirks and things.
Yeah, it did. It rocked for besides taking a long time to load Valis 2, so I ended up quitting it. I mean, everything else has been.
Is actually those are my fault on those MSX things. No, I have been experimenting with combining discs into giant ROMs, and it's sort of is hit or miss whether it's going to actually work.
Yeah.
Using this weird method that I use, and yeah, a lot of those combo ROMs that I put in there might work, or there might be a really weird way of needing to do it from a command line or something. Snatcher Englishes. There's one Project Melancholia that works, and then the other ones, most of them require some tinkering to get working.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they're pretty good, and I think that I'm excited to see where it goes. What happens with it in the future.
Exciting times.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks so much, and everybody who came and watched, and everyone who donated. It was fun hanging out tonight, and we'll see you awesome next Sunday, and hopefully there'll be an episode on Saturday. Hopefully we can hit the
maybe.
You're a little nervous.
It should be over the weekend regardless, but I'm aiming for Saturday.
Yeah. All right. We'll see everybody next week.
All right. Good night. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us.